Well, good morning, everybody. Välkomna. God morgon. Welcome to day 2 of the 2012 Partnership for Change Conference. We're here at the beautiful Opera House in downtown Oslo, and we've got a fairly big turnout here, as you can see, but we're also live streaming the event on the internet, something that we didn't mention yesterday, but this is actually going out to the world, so we have a potentially global audience for the events today. So it's a delight to get the second day started. Today we're going to be focusing on sustainability and business and what the business can contribute to the work of creating social change. And I was thinking about, as I was listening to the speakers yesterday and sitting in on some of the small group sessions, I was remembering something that I learned from a remarkable Indian woman, Vandana Shiva. She told me that we teach our children, the best way to teach our children is by inspiring them. And I just love that, the idea that we learn best not by being taught, but by being inspired. And in that sense, the conference so far, at least for me, has been very educational because I've been deeply inspired by many of the speakers we've had, some incredible, remarkable people, as you know. So to kick off today, we have yet another remarkable speaker. He hardly needs an introduction. It's a great honor for us to have him with us. He's best known as the former Prime Minister of the Netherlands, Wim Kok, and he has a long and distinguished list of credentials, as you might imagine. He was the former Prime Minister of the Netherlands from 1994 to 2002. And now he heads up the Club de Madrid, which is a distinguished network of about 80 former presidents and prime ministers. So the fact that he was willing to take his time out to be part of the Partnership for Change 2012 and attend all the sessions yesterday, as well as come out and speak to us today, is really a great honor. So ladies and gentlemen, to get today's activities started, please help me welcome Wim Kok.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for the invitation to participate in this inspiring conference. I listened carefully yesterday to a number of very interesting monologues and presentations and discussions on women empowerment, and I feel very much at home here. First of all, because there are a lot of similarities between Norway and the Netherlands. And secondly, because as President of the Club de Madrid, and Kjell Manje Bondevit, is former Prime Minister, is one of the members of that Club de Madrid. We are very much engaged in issues we are discussing these days, yesterday, today, and also in the follow-up after this conference. I think a number of common denominators like women empowerment, of course, democracy, human rights, shared societies, and striking the balance between economic growth, social cohesion, and environmental sustainability. And let me make a few introductory remarks for today's session, not too long. The world, I think, we are living in today is more confusing and also confused sometimes than we have seen in the past decades. There are some social and political instabilities in the world, also in Europe. And on top of that, we see growing concern about growing income and wealth inequalities and excessive greed in the financial sector. And there is a perceived inability of political and business leaders to give satisfactory answers to major ecological problems and challenges we face nowadays. Occupy movements and protesters against social injustice and lack of political freedom do not always offer alternatives, but in my view they are sending important signals to the political and financial elite that should better not be ignored. The capitalist market economy system, especially in the Anglo-Saxon world, is generally criticized now, and the big question we have to respond to is there a way out or a way forward? And to be frank, I don't see a realistic alternative for the market economy. But some kind of synergy must be found between market and state, and the question is, how should this synergy look like? How to strike the right balance, recognizing that this balance cannot be found alone at the national level. According to me, a crucial factor everywhere is if people can be sure that values like fairness and inclusiveness are taken seriously by all those who carry economic and political responsibility. This is an indispensable ingredient for business and political leaders to regain credibility at a time where confidence and trust have sunk considerably throughout our societies. Of course, growth of GDP is important, but growth is not an end in itself. It is rather an important means for achieving things we value and appreciate and for improving living standards. And that is exactly where the need for a well-organized and structured dialogue comes in, both within societies and across borders. What I have tried to learn in my life is that the most successful and harmonious societies are those where governments, private sector, enterprises and civil society, including non-governmental organizations and labor unions, are prepared to work together for the common good. The concept of economic development can certainly help us to satisfy needs within our societies, but this concept gives much better results if it is extended to social and ecological areas as well, and if broad groups are enabled to get a fair share of its benefits. I think, ladies and gentlemen, that it's clear that there is a strong need for a kind of non-ideological approach, bringing the market and the state closer together, with the purpose to move toward a more inclusive and fair society, where many people have a say, not only shareholders of companies, but we are all stakeholders in society. It is our future. It's about the future of our children and our grandchildren. So the engagement of and participation by civil society is of vital importance to do so successfully. This is true for issues related to social innovation and for environmental sustainability as well. A domestic culture of social dialogue and consultation is of vital importance. It's true that the world is getting more and more interconnected. The process of globalization has brought and brings a lot of opportunities for people and advantages, especially to the well-educated. But socially weaker groups of people rightly fear being left behind by globalization, and they seek protection against social inequality and economic uncertainty. So my point is, inclusive politics are the way forward. And our task, our common task ahead, is to create equal opportunities and to do so in a sustainable way. We have to focus on what binds us as human beings instead of what separates us. Well, let me limit my presentation to these opening remarks, and I wish you a very successful, interesting and inspiring second day of this conference. Thank you very much.
Well, that was terrific. That really helped to set the stage for what we're going to be talking about today. And to build on those comments by Wim Kok, I'm pleased to present Per Sandberg next. And he's going to talk about the Vision 2050. Vision 2050, of which he's the project manager, is really a remarkable project that aims at charting a path towards sustainability for the business community. And it's a very comprehensive plan, and hopefully, he's got 15 minutes. Hopefully he'll be able to get it all in within 15 minutes. But what's so fascinating about Per Sandberg and his project is that it really sort of charts some of the essential features of what such a vision would look like and whether it's even possible to do. And his talk will sort of set the stage for what lies ahead, which is a discussion about some of the very practical ways that the business community can be part of creating social change. So Per Sandberg is originally from Sweden, like myself, and he is, as I mentioned, project manager of Vision 2050. He's a senior manager at Accenture Management Consulting here in Oslo, and a member of the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Per Sandberg.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you for inviting me here. As Scott said, I'm going to present Vision 2050, and it's not only a vision, it's quite a practical and concrete down-to-earth vision, and it comes with a roadmap. This is something we did in the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, which is a membership organization, 200 multinationals. It was a child of Rio, came out and organized in the business community. And actually Vision 2050 is the platform of the business community going into the Rio Plus 20 conference this summer. We started this some years ago, and really out of confusion. I think what we felt was that there was so much going on. There were so many mega trends, so much talk, so much challenges, so many opportunities. And we, as a group of companies, wanted to give ourselves a tool to understand the future, to really structure our thinking and a platform for strategy. So we gave ourselves 3 big tasks, and they are probably too big to run a project, but that's what we did, and we landed on the feet. So the 3 big questions were: what does a sustainable world look like? How do we get there? And what is the role of business in getting to such a future? We got together a group of 29 companies, including the CEOs, and you see the logos here. A very good group, almost all industrial sectors, all geographies represented, and we worked very intensely for 18 months during the midst of the financial crisis. And what we really did, I think that the real value of this work, as I will try to explain, is that we moved from megatrends. Everyone works on megatrends, and we basically see the same megatrends. But what we did was to take one step further, and we did that as a group. We said, okay, if those are the megatrends, and I will come back to them, what are the solutions and successes the world needs for a sustainable and prosperous future? Being these big questions, we try to simplify the structure. So we had some major steps, and I will be walking you through these steps very rapidly in my speech. So the first one we started with was a megatrend analysis. Where are we heading in a business-as-usual world? And we saw the same megatrends as anyone else sees when you do this seriously. We see, first of all, a tremendous growth story. Our sustainability challenges in the world is a result of success. The world is a successful place. We grow. We grow the number of people, the age of people, the wealth of people, the consumption of people, etc., etc. So that's the growth story. Unfortunately, there is an inertia on the solution side. We are not developing the political or the technical solutions quick enough. So the results of this is what we call a degradation. Most of all in the ecological system, the ecosystem services. You can look into any major study and you will find that too many and too important ecosystems are being degraded and undermining our long-term prosperity. So that was the story. And we used 3 pages in our report on this business-as-usual outlook. We used the remaining pages on the solution side. That was also a very clear signal that our view, the roadmap and the vision we wanted to build was about the solutions. What are the solutions needed? So from here, we also saw the growth, the inertia, the degradation. As a group of companies, we then said, we need to sort of sum this up. What's our view on this? And we worked with someone called the Ecological Footprint Organization to build a comprehensive map. And what they showed us, when we summed everything together, was that we are on the path to be consuming 2.3 of planets of natural resources in 2050. Okay. So at this stage in the project, we took a pause. we set down the 29 companies in workshops. The whole project was actually workshops. We did 5 weeks of workshops on very senior people. Okay? And we said, well, we need to have a meaning of this. We need to have a view on business as usual. And it's not really business as usual, it's society as usual. I think business as usual is a bit of a misleading term. It puts all the focus on business, where it's really a societal issue, broader issue. So the conclusion which the business leaders drew here was very simple, and it was no. The main conclusion was no. Business as usual is not an option. For society, in a time period to 2050, business as usual is dead as a strategy, were some of the statements we heard from some of the CEOs, which is a very, very strong message. The path we're on, including the normal rates and the expected rates of innovation, is not enough. We're going to be on 2.3 planets and non-inclusive society as well. Okay. So we said business as usual is dead as a strategy, we need something else. So then we moved on. So we took this and then formulated our vision. And our vision is very simple. It has 3 elements. It's written on the top. The first part of it, the last part, is, well, we have to keep within the budget. There is one planet. We have one planet on natural resources. That's the first part, within the limits of the planet. The second part, the first part, is about population. UN's median projection says 9 billion people in 2050 and sort of peaking there. So we accepted that and said there will be something like 9 billion people in 2050. And the third element of our vision is it's a very high ethical and moral ambition, saying all those 9 billion people should live well. So our vision 2050 is 9 billion people living well within the limits of the planet. And when I present this to NGOs or policymakers or academia, they say, no, that's not your vision, that's our vision. That's not a business vision, that's our vision. Which is good, it's great. And I think there is no disagreement on this level about what is success, which is very important. If there is disagreement, it is about a solution. So from there on, we went to the major part of the work, which is to do, how do you get there? Okay, major work. And the key part then of our report is really this pathway, which is way too condensed for anyone to read. So I'll walk you through sort of the logic of it. It has 9 elements. In reality, when we worked on the project, we worked on everything at the same time. That is probably the uniqueness. Normally one slices things up. Water, energy, poverty, pension systems, this and that. In this case, we really try to look at everything at the same time, which is tough. But that's what we did. But when we were to communicate the results, we had to slice it up. So we sliced it up into 9 sectors, and you have them on the bottom. Okay? So the 6 on the right are industrial sectors, are major industrial sectors. Okay? Then, third from the left, you have economy, which is really about the rules of the economic system. On the left, you have two elements which might be surprising in a business vision, but which is very relevant for this conference, and I'm sure many in the audience. Okay? It is about people's values and human development. Okay? We, as a group of companies, I must admit, we were pretty amateurish on some of these issues. Okay? We don't have departments for people's values. We have departments for everything else, but it's not something which companies are particularly well experienced and have extremely depth in the knowledge on. Okay? But as a group of companies, we were absolutely clear that if we're going to map a pathway to a sustainable future, it is not enough with industrial changes and innovation. There needs to be a parallel, supportive and integrated development and innovation in our value systems and the human condition. So that's why they're there. It's very important. Maybe you're not totally sort of overwhelmed by what we say, but I think it's pretty good. And it's very important. It's on the map. So that's the elements. The next way then to read this map is to start from the top. Okay? So what we did, we took our big vision, 9 billion people living well within the limits of the planet, and we broke it down into the 9 sectors. And we said, what does each sector has to deliver to reach the vision? Okay? Then you start to see something interesting. Then this becomes concrete. Then we see the kind of change, the kind of success the world will have to go through the next 40, 50 years. And personally, which I thoroughly believe we will go through. Okay? So take some sectors which are quite easy to understand. Buildings, third from the right. What does it say? Well, buildings in 2050 has to be zero net energy. Buildings will not and should not consume energy. If they consume energy, they will have to produce the same amount. This is not just an example here and a pilot there. It is the building as such. The building, the whole world buildings platform, okay? That's what's needed from the buildings sector. Agriculture, okay? Output double. The vision statement is enough food, biofuels and fiber for everyone. You can't disagree with that, okay? That is the vision statement, okay? But what it means something like a doubling of output. Or FIO says 70% growth. We said 100%. That's in the error margin. But that's something, okay? On the left-hand side, human development. Billions of people lifted out of poverty. That is what's needed there. So if any one of you is interested in running the world, it's your balanced scorecard. Okay, or your set of KPIs, as we talk about in the business community, key performance indicators. Those 9 success factors, that's what you can run the world on. Then, if you reach those when you're ending in 2050, you've succeeded as a leader, okay? So I think this is really the value of the work. We broke down what's a sustainable world into concrete action and what kind of success do we need. Next step was then to move on and go back and say, okay, which successes do we need along the way? Okay, again, this is backcasting the methodology. We did not guess what the world will look like. We don't believe in that methodology, okay? And it's not particularly useful for strategy decisions either, okay? This, the company said, was much more useful. If we are to reach this success, what would be needed along the way? And in particular, we focus on the next 10 years, the blue here. We call it a turbulent teen because we think they will be turbulent, and they actually should be turbulent when we get into the mindset of needing this radical change from consuming 2.3 to consuming 1 planet. Okay? And if we look at the world now, it's doing pretty well. You know, it's turbulent enough, many of us would say. It is more than turbulent enough. Okay? What you see then, if you go back, what is needed to reach this target? There is a tremendous innovation. There is a rate of change way beyond what we are used to. There's a rate of change which is almost like taking the IT sector rate of change into the rest of society. That's what we're talking about. Tremendous change. Agriculture, it is a second green revolution needed. That's obviously. You need somewhere between 2 and 3% growth in agriculture output per year, and today we are between 0 and 1. So it's a second green revolution. And it's similar in the other sectors. The way to read this map to get real value is to read across the line, not just one element by each other. And if we do this, we see, if we try to sum up, and again, this is not me summing up, this is the 29 companies talking together about what do we think are needed of success and must-haves in the future. Then we identified 4 major topics that we will need to master in order to get to the successful future. So the first one, in the upper right, is what I've talked a lot about. Okay? It's the resource-efficient transition and social inclusive. There's 2 huge elements. Social inclusive, bringing billions of people into the pleasures of the market, the successes of the market, the goods that an efficient market can deliver, a rightly structured market. Okay? So we see here, there are tremendous changes. Double the energy production, double agriculture output, half the CO2. On material efficiency, we need to be 4 to 10 times as efficient, the value we get out of a unit of aluminium or steel or paper or whatever. Okay? Lower right, true costs. This was our big policy message and our big policy wish. As companies, multinational companies, we were true believers in the market economy, but we're playing on the wrong rules. Okay, we're not playing according to the right rules. We don't pay the right price for resources, water, pollution, ecosystem services. Okay, so we were asking from the policymakers, give us the right rules and let's play the game according to the right rules. Then we get a sustainable future. This is very hard. I mean, we can see the struggle on getting to CO2 prices. Okay, but we should not be depressed just because we don't get a global CO2 price. There are a lot of promising true costs popping up, but they're coming sort of bottom up rather than top down. Okay, there is true cost movements in the world. Lower left, this is also very relevant for the Partnership for Change. What the company said was, in order to reach all the great things in the upper right, technological innovation will be crucial, but it's not enough. Okay. We will need to combine absolutely all kinds of effective innovation to deliver these solutions, and in particular in what we called integrative innovation, where you bring things together. So it's technical innovation with business models, with consumer lifestyles, with social innovation, with financing models, with policy. All these kinds. Many of the solutions will need to deliver this. Okay? And also, I'm sure this conference is about social innovation. When I have more time, I normally stop here and I ask the audience, which kind of innovation will be most important to deliver these changes? And the answer I get every time is social innovation. 60 to 70% says social innovation, including audiences where you have the heads of R&D in the biggest European companies. I don't think any corporate agenda, innovation agenda, reflects that. We have a major focus on technical innovation. So if it's true that this social innovation is so important, there will be a huge shift on how we drive innovation and complement the technical to get this integrative. Upper left, also very relevant for the Partnership for Change. All 29 companies said, we will have to collaborate much more in the future. Joint ventures, partnerships, etc., will be the normal way of doing business. It will be a mess, but it will be the normal way. It is much harder to do joint ventures than to run things themselves. But they said, and why? Why is this collaboration focus? Because we suddenly has become so benign and love each other much more? No. This is a collaboration to compete. Okay. The challenges, the successes needed on the pathway to Vision 2050 are so big, so we will need, not even the biggest of the multinationals can do it alone. There will need to be partnerships. Partnerships between companies and NGOs and governments or cities or regions or whoever are useful for delivering these solutions. And I'm sure we will hear in the next speakers real-life examples of what these partnerships look like. It's a very, very fascinating topic, and you will see there's a new generation of partnerships. They deliver. Thank you very much.
Well, that was a very inspiring talk. I noticed that there was quite a buzz yesterday on Twitter about the conference, and I just wanted to mention, if you happen to be holding your cell phones or be out there twittering, that we do have a hashtag for the conference, which helps us to sort of keep track of some of the interesting comments and ideas that are out there about the conference. It's PF Change 2012. That's the hashtag on Twitter for the Partnership for Change. Now, as I mentioned yesterday, we have a remarkably wide range of people represented at the conference. Business leaders, of course, government officials, former presidents and prime ministers, students, activists, social entrepreneurs of all kinds. And this diversity is deliberate because this is a partnership for change, a partnership for innovation, and a partnership for action on many fronts. And so this conversation that we're having right now about business and its role in finding solutions to some of our social problems is very much a part of the same conversation as the one we were having yesterday about the empowerment of women, for example, or in my case, the panel that we had in the afternoon on the changing role of the media, these are all different facets of the same conversation, which is how can we work together to press for solutions to some of our social problems. And in the case of business, to also make a profit while they're at it, which, as we're discovering, is not at all out of the question. So it's my pleasure, we're thrilled to have our next speaker with us. She happens to be somebody who's very well known here in Norway. She heads up the organization called the Confederation of Norwegian Enterprise, translated into English. It's NHO, in Norwegian, Næringslivets Hovedorganisasjon. I think that's how you say it. It's a membership organization comprising some 20,000 businesses here in Norway, from small family-owned businesses to multinational companies. She was named last year the most influential businesswoman in Norway. So you can imagine how great it is to have her with us here at the Partnership for Change to help to continue to move along this conversation about some of the ways that businesses can help to shape and carry forward the agenda for social change. So ladies and gentlemen, Kristin Skogen Lund.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here. And I'm going to start by saying something you have already heard, but which I believe we have to say again. And that is that I really strongly believe that business is very much part of the solution here rather than being the problem. And I think we are way past the stage of aspirational goals and creating awareness. I really believe we have come to the age of the good business case for sustainable development. And when corporate social responsibility and sustainable growth is profitable, that's when it will really fly, and that's what it's going to take. And therefore, it's so important that we manage to create this triangular cooperation between business, government, and the customers. But instead of talking about, let's say, the politics around that, I thought I'd spend my few minutes giving you some practical examples, maybe showing what I mean when I say it, but hopefully also maybe for inspiration for others. And let me start with an example from the Confederation. Here in Norway, we have created two programs, one called Female Future and the other called Global Future. And these are programs where we provide networks and facilitate that well-qualified women and immigrants in the two different programs, that they come together, that they get some necessary skills, and we help them, let's say, over the hurdle that it takes to really utilize their full potential. And now we have, for 5 years, had a cooperation with our Nigerian sister organization, the Nigerian Confederation for Business and Industry. And we have helped set up, in a similar fashion, a program there called the Network for Female Entrepreneurs. And we now have 500 members of that network, and these women are so impressive and have already done so much good via their involvement. And I just have to tell you about the president of that organization, and her name is a bit difficult. It's Fanlula Okanluwan, and she's a grown woman, let's say. Her children are grown up. She went back to school, but rather what you can sometimes think when you talk about female entrepreneurs in Africa, you sort of picture basket weaving or something. Fanlula, she studied production engineering, and she opened a factory producing PVC pipes for the construction industry, and now runs a huge operation down there. And she now heads up this network and is a great inspiration and help to other women who then can achieve, hopefully, the same thing that she has done. So it's a great, it's such a win-win in these situations, because obviously such a work is also very beneficial to the confederations that started out that work in the first place. But some of my best examples actually come from my own employer. I work for the Norwegian telecom company, Telenor. And we are now investing quite heavily into financial services in Asia. And it might sound strange for a telecom operator to do that. But in our markets in Asia, for example, Pakistan, where we have started, 80% of the population are so-called unbanked. They don't have access to bank services. So we have launched a very easy service where your mobile phone is your account. The mobile phone number is your account number, and the mobile network serves as the transmission for money transfers and savings and loans. And it's very simple, very low cost, very uncomplicated. And you don't have to go to a bank to do this. You can go to your corner shop to have a transaction run through. And we are actually already now, after 3-4 years in operation, we are Pakistan's biggest bank. And our goal is to lower those 80% that are not banked, lower those by 20%. And we had a study made which shows that can actually help grow the BNP of Pakistan with as much as 5%. It sounds incredible, but the spin-off effects of these people having access to financial services means that they will again become entrepreneurs and start value-creating businesses. So it has a massive impact. And in the world today, there are actually 2 billion people who are unbanked, but who have a mobile phone. So the potential for this is just enormous. And we have very great ambitions for ourselves. Our idea is that our operations in Asia in a few years' time shall derive 10% of all its revenue from financial services. It's quite ambitious, but we believe that's possible. So we're doing something useful and something good for the societies where we are, but this is also clearly business-wise very interesting for us. Our financial services customers are very loyal because their phone is also their bank, so they don't switch operators very easily, and they also use their phone more, so it's just a win-win all the way through. Another example from Asia is that we have entered into a cooperation with Wikipedia, where we provide all our 130 million customers in Asia with free access to Wikipedia. That obviously will cost us something short-term, providing this access for free. On the other hand, it's a fantastic way for us to lower the threshold for those potential internet customers to start using internet services, and then also other internet services than Wikipedia in due course. So it's a great example of you're doing something good and useful to the population and to your customers, but in the long run, it will also be very beneficial for us as a business. But we don't have to go all the way to Asia to find good examples, and I wanted to tell you 2 quick stories that I actually experienced this very week, and that gave me very good inspiration. Yesterday, I attended NHO's regional conference in Telemark, and I met a woman called Astrid Skreosen. She is an assistant nurse. She's a mother of 4, and she worked at the maternity ward at the hospital in Skien. And she got so frustrated with the inefficiencies in changing over from one patient to the next. It took so much time, cleaning, changing the beds weren't functionally set up, etc., etc. And she wasn't able to create the change at the hospital. So she left and she started her own business. And just a couple of months ago, she opened up a 12-meter-long production line where she now produces disposable sheets. And she has already entered into agreements with several hospitals in Norway. And I think she might be able to make an export industry out of this as well. And she said one thing. She said, at some point, I realized that I had gone from being in the healthcare industry to being in business. And that was by some people seen as a bit strange and a bit bad. But she said, the truth is, I can do a lot more for the healthcare industry in business than I can in the healthcare industry. And I thought that was just so well put. And I just believe we need more women like Astrid who have the guts to do something about things and actually take the risk it is to go out and create your own business the way she did. And the last example I'm going to leave you with it's from Telenor. We have a program that we called Open Mind. We're very proud of it because it works really well. It's a program we've been running for 15 years, and it's about help to include people with physical handicaps or disabilities to work. And it has also proven a great win-win concept because these people are very able and loyal workers, and 75% of them have ended up having permanent employment in Telenor, which is great. The leader of this program is a woman called Ingrid Ime. She herself suffers from a muscle deficiency, so she needs an electrical wheelchair to get around. And she's been leading this program for almost a full 15 years now. And on Monday, I interviewed her for our intranet, and we sat there talking about the success of this program and her role, etc. And then she said one thing that really, really struck me. She said, "You know what? I'm not an idealist. This is not what this is about. I'm a darn good leader and executor, and that's why this program works." And I want to leave you with that, because that's really what it's all about. And that's what it takes. Thank you.
I'd like to turn things over next to Ole Jakob Sunde, who will lead our next who will introduce our next round of speakers and lead a panel discussion on how business and government can come together and collaborate on meeting some of our pressing social challenges. And it happens to be a very interesting question, as we know, because the public and the private sector are too often sort of described as on opposite ends of the spectrum. And too often they're pitted as antagonists, and instead of being seen as different facets or as collaborators in working together for social change. So it's a very interesting topic, and really one that's at the heart of what we're trying to address here with the Partnership for Change 2012. Ole Jakob Sunde, as many of you know, is the founder and working chairman of Förmögenhetsförvaltning, one of the organizing partners of the conference. And he also holds several board memberships. Many of you are familiar with Schibsted, the Norwegian media conglomerate of which he is chairman. I also learned last year that he happens to be a very good moderator. So you're in good hands with Ole Jakob Sunde.
Good morning, everybody. I think I will start with a personal observation from yesterday. Yesterday dealt with empowerment of women. But as I was sitting in the audience yesterday and listening to this string of women, one after the other, one more clever than the other, presenting on the topic, I thought to myself that the title, Women Empowerment, is almost a little misleading. Because these women, they are not only empowered, they are multi-powered or superpowered. And this observation gives me great confidence that reaching the goal of Vision 2050 is not only feasible, but I think we'll make it. When we listened to Per Sandberg this morning presenting the goals of Vision 2050, I think there are few of us, if any, that will disagree with these goals. On the other hand, there is one question remaining, and that is, what do we do on Monday morning when we get into the office and start working on reaching these goals? And it could be different for you, but at least for me, these goals are general and they're not so tangible that I know what to do as a business leader or as a politician on how to start working on them. So the purpose of this session that we will have now is to try to start this discussion and try to give you some insight in how we can tackle these topics on Monday morning when we all go back to the office. And to help us in this endeavor, we have put together a panel of 6 coming from all different sectors of society. And they will first give a brief introductory remark, and afterwards we will have a panel dialogue. And since 2050 is just around the corner, I think we should get started. And therefore I will proceed to introduce the first speaker, which is Mr. Egil Myklebust. Egil Myklebust is a veteran of the Norwegian industry. He worked for more than 30 years in Norsk Hydro, the last 10 years as chief executive operator. And he also then served afterwards as chairman of the board. So, I would like you to meet Egil Myklebust.
Thank you for the introduction. Even though I've been making presentations for 40 years, this is my first time on the podium of an opera house. So I'm happy to be here on a very important and serious theme. I've been working in business in about 40 years. Most of the time I've spent in Norsk Hydro, but I've been in NHO, I've been in SAS, and I've been in mechanical engineering. So I've been around, and everywhere where I've been, the issues of sustainability has been an issue for all of the 40 years I've been working. In 1970, when I started, it's 40 years ago, and it's about 40 years until 2050, which Per Sandberg spoke about. But even in 1970, we had a number of sustainability issues. We only didn't call them that, because that phrase or terminology came into the picture in 1992 in Rio through the Brundtland report. So the good news, looking at the 40 years I have been participating in this discussion, is that quite a few of the sustainability issues we faced in 1970 has been solved. Quite a few had disappeared because it turned out that in reality it might not be quite as big a problem as it appeared to be. And some we are still in the process of working with, and we will be in that process for some time to come. However, the bad news is that as you are solving the problems you have defined, new problems are coming up. And I do believe that Per Sandberg's and Vision 2050's description of the challenges is pretty accurate, based upon sound analytical work, and ending up with a conclusion and a target for 2050, which is very difficult not to share, namely that 9 billion people need to live well on resources which the planet can deliver without being further depleted. So far, so good. Listening to Per reminds me a little bit about a strategy which to me is very precise, very clear, and very simple. It was created in the second half of the 19th century by Minister William Booth creating the Salvation Army. The strategy is soup, soap, and salvation, and in that order. And I do believe that's relevant today, not only for the Salvation Army. So it's the same strategy, as far as I can see it today, as it was 130 years ago. And I suspect that when we meet again in 2050, even if we have solved what Per Sandberg has described, there will be some new issues coming up. What is different from before is that things are changing much faster. We have always said that, and it's always been true in the time I've been in business. But it has been a paradigm shift, and technology, globalization, crises we haven't seen before in exactly the form we have had them now, they are coming so quickly and are so hard to predict that the momentum of things is more difficult to cope with. And it happens in a world which has become quite a bit more complex. The issues, take for instance the climate change issue, is much more complex to solve and to get moving on, because they require some sort of a global governance, and it happens in a time when we do not have that global governance. So the aspect of globalization driving things at the same time as we do not have a governance system to handle requirements from globalization is a major challenge, and it will continue to be so for quite a few years to come. Which is something which also indicates that when Per Sandberg is talking about business as usual, if I look around myself at issues concerning business, concerning civil society, and concerning governments, business as usual is probably the last terminology I would use. The problem is that it is not business as usual. And the unexpected is coming up quarter by quarter, year by year, and I suspect it will continue to do so. That also means that even though I agree completely that to solve the major challenges presented in Vision 2050, we need partnership. However, the partners may, for the time being, have different things on their mind and on their table than the things we are discussing here, and I think perhaps that's what Wim Cope referred to initially. And it's very hard to criticize it, because there is no alternative to handling the financial crisis, and there exists no recipe. There is no alternative to handle the debt crisis in Europe, and for that matter elsewhere. It has to be handled, and there is no recipe available. And as it has turned out, that even within the European Union, in reality there is no governance system, not even within the European Union, to handle it. Which means that time, energy, the need to force people together that don't want to be forced together, it's a challenge which are very mind-absorbing. And it means, as we all know when we have a problem, that if you have a real problem, you need to do something about, and you need to do it now, other problems are fading away until you have saved the fundamental problem you are facing now. And I do believe that in these days, And I suspect these days will continue for a while. We have to live with a situation where the partnerships will be difficult to form in the binding manner. I do believe that business, in a sense, is privileged in playing their role. And I do believe that good companies, because we are not talking about business at large, we are talking about good companies doing specific things. And we will hear more about them today. But those specific things can be handled in the company because they do have a governance system. They do know that they have to address the battle going on presently. They do know that they need to report about their achievements and their failures. They do know that they need to learn from it. And they do know that they have to look upstream for what is coming ahead them, towards them in the longer perspective. And the good companies will see and understand, as the companies in Per Sandberg's group has seen, that if they do not include the sustainability issues in what they perceive coming towards them and which they need to deal with as part of their strategy, they will fail. It has to start somewhere. It has started somewhere. And what we will see, I believe, is that the more individual companies, big and large, European, American, Asian, that understands that, the more innovation we will see addressing the critical issue. And we are seeing it happen, and that is, in a way, to me, for the time being, the most optimistic starting point I can see for moving ahead. So I think Kristin Skogen Lund is right in saying that business has the potential, and some businesses have grabbed it, to represent the solution more than the problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Myklebust. We will now move on to the next speaker. Mr. Sandberg, in his introduction today, talked about the need for a partnership solution to what is confronting us. And one of the most important partnerships, of course, is between the business sector and the government. Therefore, I'm very happy that our Minister of Trade and Industry, Mr. Trond Giske, is with us today. And Mr. Giske has for a long time been seen as a young and aspiring politician, but he is, as a matter of fact, quite seasoned. And now he is even growing a beard. So that means that he is becoming a wise man. He has for a long time been involved with the Labour Party for the last 20 years in many leadership positions. He joined the Parliament in 1997, and he has been in various government positions since 2000. So I'm very happy to introduce Mr. Trond Giske.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be invited and also be back on the opera stage. Well, that sounded like I've been here singing. I haven't, but I've been here opening the house, and I'm very happy that the opera is participating in this excellent seminars and event. Both Cecil Rhodes and Rudyard Kipling are attributed to the quote, "To be born British is to win the first prize in the lottery of life." And let me add, being born Norwegian is quite a favorable lottery ticket as well. Indeed, chance is by far the main determinant of our opportunities in life, our living standards, wealth and life expectancy. If you're born in Norway, your life expectancy is twice the life expectancy of someone born in Mozambique. You are 4 times as likely to learn how to read as those born in Mali. And your average income as an adult is 153 times higher than if you were born in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And then I haven't even mentioned child labor. In our parts of the world, child labor is virtually non-existent, except though for this stage, sometimes we have child labor. At the same time, 215 million children are engaged in child labor all over the world. That is 215 million children who have not received their fair share of wealth, opportunity, or chance to pursue their interests. That is why the wealth distribution in the world today is not just, that is why it's not sustainable, and that is why today's headline is a matter of urgency. Dear friends, achieving social progress and change is a responsibility that we all share. And I fully comply with the thought that business's first task is to make a profit, to organize production of goods and services in a way that is sound and that creates our basic wealth. But I think also in businesses, which consist of people, there are the same kind of responsibilities as elsewhere to create a society that is good for everyone. And that is why I applaud social entrepreneurs for recognizing social problems and using business principles to solve them. And that is why my ministry commissioned a study on social entrepreneurship in Norway, a study that was published last week. We wanted to know more about social entrepreneurship in light of the Norwegian welfare state. And the study shows that even if in a strong welfare country like Norway, social entrepreneurs can be a valuable supplement to public services, not least in light of the increasing pressure on the healthcare sector. While social entrepreneurship may be a relatively new field in business politics, the idea is far from new. That businesses can have goals connected to social change as well as to private returns is an old idea. And I know Olav Selvåg has been praised as one of Norway's most prominent social entrepreneurs in the last century. Selvåg's story was also presented at the PFC conference last year. In a period of housing shortage after the Second World War, he introduced affordable family housing to the Norwegian real estate market. By building cheaper, but still with quality, Selvåg provided affordable homes to some 35,000 Norwegian families. However, the key to Selvåg's success was not social consciousness alone. What Selvåg did was that he recognized a market for high quality, affordable housing. He saw how he could supply a good that would be in demand, and as a result, he embarked upon a business venture that proved both socially game-changing and profitable. I think there is a lesson to learn from Selvåg's success. And that is that if we are to create a more sustainable form of society, we need social responsibility where there are profits. But more, we need something more. We need businesses that not merely look for short-term profits, where there also are social challenges. We must rely on business principles that guide all businesses toward sustainable operations. That is why our government is committed to social responsibility. We believe it is possible to act responsibly while still staying competitive and prosperous. We believe that government and businesses can in fact work together to promote social responsibility. We can encourage such responsibility by policies that promote CSR in companies. One example is our public investment management principles. Large parts of the Norwegian petroleum surplus are invested in the sovereign wealth fund. And these investments are now guided by a set of ethical investment principles, all in order to make sure that our revenues are not made at the cost of others. That is why the Norwegian Public Pension Fund, the Sovereign Wealth Fund, which is now the biggest in the world, does not invest in companies responsible for human rights violations, tobacco production, serious environmental law violations, or corruption, to name a few of those principles. We have also emphasized CSR in other ways. Through the release of our 2009 white paper on corporate social responsibility in a global economy, I think we were the first government anywhere to present a white paper on this subject. And also CSR has been a highlighted topic in our public ownership policy. And finally, we put CSR on the agenda through our foreign and trade policy when we negotiate bilateral trade agreements and when we travel with business delegations. CSR is always on the agenda. Through our investments, through our public ownership, and through our foreign and trade policy, the Norwegian government works to promote corporate social responsibility wherever Norwegian businesses are present and have interest. We expect the same kind of responsibility from our companies, public or private, if they or when they invest in a foreign country, as if they were investing in their home backyard. An increasing number of consumers, customers, and investors demand that goods and services are produced in a way that is both socially and environmentally sound. And an increasing number of businesses learn that there can be severe repercussions to unethical behavior on their part or on the part of a subcontractor. And in order to avoid such repercussions, businesses need to internalize aspects of CSR in their own operation. And this is an important item. CSR cannot be the nice people in the office at the end of the corridor. It has to be an integrated part of all operation, the ordinary business workday of a company. CSR must not be reduced to some sideline effort and nice reports. It has to be a part of the way a company is conducting their business. Even more can be achieved when people use their business skills and entrepreneur talents to create social change. That can really make a difference. And I believe that all governments, businesses, and organizations are responsible for making sure that the lesson is heard throughout the business community that social entrepreneurship, business principles used to organize societies in a smarter, better way to solve social problems is an important tool to reach our goals. And I believe that a meeting place, such as the PFC conference, is a fine example of how that word can be spread through collective effort. We may have come a long way, and there are many reasons why we should applaud businesses, both Norwegian and foreign, for their CSR efforts. But there are miles to go before the lottery tickets of life are evenly distributed around the world. Thank you.
Mr. Giske has to go back to the parliament and make important decisions to the benefit of all of us. So he will not be able to participate in the panel. But the next speaker will, and his name is Jørgen Ole Haslestad. In a way, it is a logic to this because the company that he is the CEO of, Yara, was previously part of Norsk Hydro and is now a separate listed company. And Yara is known to, I think, most of you as the global fertilizer company. But I know that they like to talk about themselves as helping provide food for a growing population. And I think that's a nice way to introduce Mr. Haslestad.
Thank you very much. Good morning to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to speak to you, such an engaged audience. And you see here one of the ingredients to produce food in the world. You need soil, you need water, you need seed, you need fertilizer, and you need knowledgeable farmers. If you do have those elements, you will then be able to produce food in a sustainable way. And we have heard earlier this morning about partnerships, about the importance of agriculture, that we will have something to eat in the future. And a better introduction, I think, to my small speech is difficult to get. We are in 51 countries around the world, 7,500 people, and we do have a business volume of about $15 billion US. We are delivering 20 million tons of fertilizer, and some of you might have been exposed to a fertilizer bag, and we are delivering at between 100 and 150 million fertilizer around the world. So actually, as a branded company, we are probably one of the most best known branded company in the agriculture business around the world. Our vision is to be the industry shaper, and we want to be recognized as the shaper of the industry, leading then the industry through performance growth and thought leadership. Also, the 51 countries that we are representing, out of the 7.5 million people, 7,500 people that we do have, we have 67 nations employed by us. And we have 2,500 people around in the 51 countries, which are telling the farmers how to use fertilizer, what to produce based on their soil. And to be driving thought leadership is something that we as the leading industry or leader of the fertilizer industry has taken up as an important challenge. We do want to create impact, and we want to create impact in the way that we are doing our business. And we want to do that through thought leadership, sustainability, and compliant activities. And it has been talking here about a lot of challenges that we do have in front of us. And we firmly believe that to solving the global challenges presents also then a great business opportunity for us in the future. And due to this, we have generated, or we are involved in a lot of programs, and one of the programs which we do drive is to give a guarantee for CO2 guarantee for the products coming out of our plants. I am convinced that in the future we will see requirements from us, the consumers, that on the food that is produced that we will have a carbon footprint guarantee. And we can do that from our plants here in Scandinavia. And we have been in contact with a lot of the consumer companies, Coca-Cola, Nestle, Unilever, to mention some of them, which are very interesting in being able then in the future to have a full, transparent production of their products, and then also to explain about the carbon footprint and give them a carbon footprint guarantee. And as said here, it's the crop I want, not CO2. We have to make sure that this is then controlled. Another important project that we are involved in is the Sahara Forest Project, which Fredrik Hauge will talk about later here today. This is for us to be involved in such a project is very important because we are here on the edge of developing new technology, and here we are using sun, water and CO2 then to produce food in a very sustainable way. And this plant, we will build it and we will see results out of this by the end of the year. To be able to drive the business that we represent, you also have to have the farmers understanding that what they are involved in is actually a business. And we have, since 2006, we involved ourselves in the African Green Revolution together with Kofi Annan, and we started then to understand the challenges that we are facing in Africa as a nation and as a world. And we started then to also see that it is not only donation which is required, one has to develop businesses. And in 2008 we had the first corridor in Beira in Mozambique, and then in 2010 we had the second corridor which in Sagot in Tanzania. We do know, and we have heard about it, that we will by 2050 be about 9 million people, and you can see here on the curve of the arable land, the square meter arable land per person is reducing drastically. And as I said in the beginning, we need soil, water to be able then to produce the food that we do have. And we also need to tackle the environmental challenges. And we have been in the activities that we are involved in Africa very much focused on making a smart agriculture development. In Tanzania, in the Sagot corridor, we are as I said, developing a business, because it doesn't help that the farmer is increasing his production. He also then have to have, well, to feed his family, that's enough, but he also then have to have a market to sell it into. And to have a market, he needs also then infrastructure, and he needs roads. And you can see here that how a lot of the products in Africa are brought into the farmers here with a Yara bag, and then the products out from the farmers and into the markets. And this is not the way that you can get a sustainable development of agriculture businesses in Africa. The South Sadcot, the growth corridor in Tanzania, is a cooperation between a lot of NGOs. The Norwegian government has also then participating to a very great extent in the first phase to be able then to develop the blueprint of the corridor concept. And the concept is within the next 10 years that we will be able to bring 2 million people out of poverty, generating 450 jobs in the 1,000 jobs in the agriculture area. And we are looking at an investment of about $3.5 billion, generating then a revenue in the next years to come about 1 billion per year, which means that from the smallholder farmer to the market, you also have a lot of businesses involved. Financing is one of them, which is very important, and a lot of farmers' rights and everything, and that needs to be in place to be able then to get the benefit out of it. And the benefit out of it, if you do, on the right side here you see maize produced in the normal way in Africa, and then on the left side produced in a proper way using then the right fertilizer to the right time and the right amount. Very important to use the right amount, not over-fertilize. And then you can see the differences of the productivity. But I mean, if a farmer used to have the productions on the right and get it on the left, he also then have to have a market to bring it into. and then there has to be companies then which are picking up the products. Also then important in this regard is to have champions which are participating in those projects. And you see here President Kikwete in Tanzania and me planting then a mango tree at our terminal in Tanzania. We are building a terminal to take fertilizer more professionally and much more quicker in, which we can reduce the price and bring it then into the farmers in the farmlands outside Tanzania. And I use this picture because this is also then to be able then to develop something in Africa, but in quite a few of the developed countries, is that we have champions. And Kikwete is a fantastic champion. He says that 75% of my population is living from agriculture. And I cannot develop my country if I do not have a development within agriculture. I cannot get the growth that we need to do. So this is an extremely good example of a partnership between governmental bodies, NGOs and a company. And I must say we are working for generating then businesses for ourselves, but doing that in a sustainable way. And I am convinced that we and companies like us has to take a stand and has to work for bringing then a better world and making sure that we get the necessary food that needs to be on the tables in 2050. So thank you very much.
We have talked about cooperation between the state and business earlier today when introducing Mr. Giske. I know also that Mr. Hasselstad now introduced the cooperation with another organization, which is Bellona, the Sahara Forest Project. And therefore, the only logic to the program now is to introduce Fredrik Hauge. The Vision 250 is about saving the planet. And Mr. Hauge was already 5 years ago on the front page of Time magazine, where he was seen as the most innovative and influential pioneer in the endeavor of saving the planet. So, now it's my pleasure to introduce Fredrik Hauge.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. We have some huge challenges. The next 40 years, the rich countries have to cut the CO2 emissions with 80%, developing countries with at least 50%. The world energy demand is growing. Two-thirds of the world's population has a legitimate need for more energy. This is going to be very, very difficult when we know that, additional to that, we will have close to 2 billion more people the next 40 years. That's the most enormous challenge the human beings ever have faced. I say this because we will have a lack of energy, food, fresh water, and we will have all too much CO2 and climate gases in the atmosphere. The science today is working very heavily to conclude what's going on global warming. This will be presented in 2013-14 by the International Climate Panel, which still is, in my opinion, a very, very important source. That's the best we have. I am afraid that they will conclude that we need to go what I call carbon negative to be able to avoid a larger temperature increase than 2 degrees the next 40 years. 2 degrees, that is affecting the polar areas enormously. The last 10 years, the melting of the Greenland ice has increased from 2 gigatons a year to 4 gigatons a year. So what do we do if we have to solve these problems. If this science is right, what kind of options do we have? What's the parameters that we have to look out from? And today we are consuming globally around 19,000 terawatt hours to keep the level of welfare we have today. If we are going to increase the countries outside OECD at the same level as we have inside OECD, we would increase that energy consumption up to 54,000 terawatt hour. If you use the US Geological Survey's estimates of coal reserves, we will then have spent them within the next 30 years. We need to be extremely innovative. We have to take care of early movers and risk takers, and we have to stop talk. We have to do. I've been working with Bologna Foundation soon in 26 years. When we started, it was a point at the problem. Today, it's all about finding solutions. 6-7 years ago, I started to work out a carbon negative strategy. I've been working for many years with carbon capture and storage. Could we combine this with bioproduction? Because what happens if we use bio for energy production and take care of the CO2 and get away with it? Then we go carbon negative. What we saw in our studies was that we need to use what we have enough of. That's CO2, that's desert, that's seawater, and that's sun and heat. And we should use this to produce what we need more of. That's fresh water, that's electricity, that's food, that's bioenergy. Why this focus on bioenergy? I emphasize we need all kinds of weapons to combat global warming and poverty. But bioenergy represents a way to store energy produced also by other renewable energy sources. If we could use solar wafers or concentrated solar power to pump in seawater to the desert, produce fresh water, and make biomass from that, we store the energy, and you have the whole world market. If you are only building a solar panel farm, you are dependent on grid system. The combination between biomass and renewable could enable a lot of possibilities for stand-alone renewable energy production in the countries that needs them. So what we have done is that we have together with our partners created a foundation and a company called the Sahara Forest Project. We have plans for bringing in seawater to the desert, cool concentrated solar power by this technology, because they need cooling and they cannot use up fresh water for cooling these facilities, and we increase the output of electricity a lot. We then do the cooling with a greenhouse we have developed that is evaporating seawater and producing fresh water. We are combining this with synergies for algae production, and we think we have strategies for bringing down biofuel costs a lot. You could use then the biofuel to produce biogas and run the turbines in the concentrated solar power plant during night. You get CO2 and you feed the algae. In a way, the bigger activities we have, more carbon we store in the ground and in the products. I say this because I think there will be enormous future markets for bioenergy, and that is one of the big unknowns. What could that do? And why should we only use fresh water? Why can we not use seawater? We are also studying in Bologna what we call Ocean First Project. We are now working at 2 different locations in planting seaweed from nutritions let out from the fish farming industry. If you do that around all the fish farm industry in Norway, you could probably produce 2 million tons of seaweed every day. And you will get a much more healthy fish farm. We are also having projects with this at Madagascar and other places, because this is a way to create employment. And with 2 billion people, that needs a job? Do you think we lift the world's poor up to a better level of living standard by selling them oil from the north for $120 per barrel? No. I think the future will show that in the future the rich world will be demanded to look at climate change in a little bit different way. As a bank loan that we have created our welfare from, that we now have to pay back with an interest. Because if we could cut 120% in Europe, you enable Africa to have bigger and faster growth. They have more to go on when it comes to the CO2 emissions. Why should not we be obligated to buy, for example, parts of the sustainable biomass produced in Africa and the Middle East, to do co-firing with European coal power plants and carbon capture and storage, and you make the biggest emitters to one of the biggest weapons that we have. If you look at it, with the existing infrastructure today in Europe, you could remove 3.5 gigatons of CO2 every year by doing this. That's close to 10% of the reductions needed in 2040. But if you had enough biomass, you could go up to 10 gigaton. That means 25% of all the reductions needed in 2050. How many people do you have to employ in the Middle East and in North Africa and in other areas where we have desert to bind so much biomass? It's 40 million people, less than $2 a day in Egypt. Isn't it better that they are growing biomass than carrying around on a Kalashnikov? Doesn't we have a lot of other reasons, security reasons, to act this way? I'm sure that we are not able to combat global warming and poverty without this new kind of innovation ideas. We are extremely proud of the cooperation we have with Yara and CAFCO, where we're building a 10,000 square meter laboratory for this that's going to be up and going before the climate negotiations in Qatar this year. We have a very good cooperation in Jordan, where we have got a large area inside Aqaba. Why should we not make the Jordan Valley green? And at the end, this is a way to produce fresh water, food, energy, and clean air. We need that. And we need to find strategies where we employ the developing countries in the energy production in the future in a sustainable way. We will have partnerships. We have been an NGO. We are now starting to act commercially, because going green by black numbers at the bottom line is the only way to do it. And that's why we are so proud to work with business companies to not only talk, but to do the implementation. And I hope what we are doing the next year is going to give you a lot of good reasons to be optimistic, because I am. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to a different sector of society, and therefore it's my pleasure to introduce Vibeke Madsen. Mrs. Madsen is CEO of Virke. Virke is the Enterprise Federation of Norway. It is a little bit difficult to translate Virke into English, but it's something about being active, to be active, to be on the go. And I think that this is important if we shall be able to meet the challenges ahead of us. Virke are representing 16,000 companies throughout Norway and more than 200,000 employees. So it's an important part of the Norwegian society. So therefore, please meet Mrs. Vibeke Madsen.
Honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's a privilege for the Virke and myself to partner such an important and interesting event. Per Sandberg has just drawn a future scenario which calls for action from all stakeholders to handle the various challenges needed to be met in order to secure sustainability. One of the vision's important suggestions is that the stakeholders together need to find the solutions to the various problems which may threaten the sustainability. Hence, it's possible to find new ways of doing business that creates shared value or creating win-win situations. The key word when discussing shared value is collaboration between businesses and between businesses, authorities and NGOs. I've been asked to give some examples from our members as to how they work with stakeholders to find such shared value. Before I do, I will just briefly let you know who our members are. Wiki is a growing employer organization, and we have representing a wide range of sectors. We organize a variety of trade branches, knowledge and technology, service sector, private health and educational institution, travel, and a wide range of NGOs. When discussing complex issues like shared value, sustainability, CSR, and social innovation, it's important to bear in mind that a large part of Norwegian business life do not have the necessary resources for large and global collaboration stakeholder projects. The smaller businesses sometimes struggle to see their role as a change makers, yet some of them still are change makers with a broad perspective of social responsibility without necessarily using these terms themselves about what they do. Some of them also find collaboration projects such as Aerial Photo, who works together with Norwegian welfare system, NAV, to include people with psychological challenges into working life. In my opinion, reaching the smaller businesses is of great importance to secure sustainability capitalism. The point is not how big you are. The key is the creativeness to find the areas of shared value based on our own situation as a company. When asked to give good examples of shared value, it's symptomatic that many of our members, both private enterprises and NGOs, are present at this conference. Bama, Steria, Hartmark, CARE, Save the Children, the Church City Mission and the Norwegian Women's Public Health Association are all giving valuable examples of their great projects, expertise and substantial example of shared value. Yesterday, we heard about Bama's process-oriented work for the right to freedom of association and their advocacy towards the lawmakers in Costa Rica. There are, of course, many others as well. Yeah, I can mention IKEA's collaboration with UNICEF and World Wildlife Fund, and Varnegruppens collaboration with Save the Children, UNICEF and Plan Norway. Both enterprises have incorporated in their strategies to work sustainable and see it as valuable to work closely with the NGOs. Through these collaborations, working conditions have been improved and contributed to more ethical trade in the supply chain when importing goods from developing countries. I would also like to mention some of Virke's most important collaboration projects as an organization. Virke represents a large part of Norwegian enterprises which import goods from developing countries, and many of them have the important role of being the link between the suppliers and the customers. We and our members are therefore working to ensure that needed ethics is always taken into account, whether it is the prohibition of tropical timber or securing decent working conditions, which is on the agenda. I will not talk politics here. although it seems clear that something needs to be done about import barriers to make export from the developing countries less demanding. A report ordered by the Norwegian Foreign Ministry that was published last month by NUPI, the Norwegian Research Institute on International Politics, points out that various kinds of barriers to import of goods from developing countries, particularly concerning agricultural products. Developing countries' ability to meet up with Norwegian and other rich countries' standards of security, quality of the meat, beef and different dairy products are a major obstacle. The way Norwegian agricultural authorities and market regulators conduct market regulation and import quotas may constitute other barriers. Our view is that we need to do something to improve this and thus make it easier for producers in developing countries to get market access and for Norwegian importers other than the market regulators to import agricultural products that developing countries offer us. Due to Virke, both interest and responsibility to contribute to increased focus and knowledge of ethical trade practices, in 2000 we initiated Ethical Trading Initiative Norway together with Norwegian Confederation of Trade Unions, Coop Norway and Norwegian Church Aid. IEH is a member-based resource center for ethical trade practices. I think this is a very good example of a multi-stakeholder initiative that works together with the business world, NGOs and others to contribute to create awareness of decent work and environmental conditions in a global supply and to strengthen support for the ethical trade. Virke has, through support from the Norwegian Agency for Development Cooperation, worked for several years in developing countries. Through transfer of knowledge and capacity building has the trade facilitation program an ultimate goal to increase export from developing countries to regional and international markets. In 2009, Virke launched a women entrepreneurship development program in East Africa, training business women from Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania and Ethiopia. This program has shown variable results with new business plan. The positive results also include increased involvement of employees, new products in new markets, and increased export. The women are, in addition, conducting trainings in their local communities and neighboring countries. That's so important. We are also running a mentoring program called Womentor in both East Africa and in Norway, the aim being to give women a network and believe in themselves as important participants, both as leaders and as entrepreneurs. Finally, I will mention another important collaboration project Virke takes part in. In 1997, Junior Achievement Young Enterprise was launched in Norway with support from us, from NHO, together with some large companies, several ministers, and also the employees' organization. This is a non-profit organization which works together in Norwegian schools, business and communities and other stakeholders to develop creativity and self-belief in young people. Junior Achievement Young Enterprise gives the youth valuable knowledge about how to set good ideas into practice. There is an extensive collaboration between business, communities and schools in the different programs. In some of them, the students develop their own business, while in school called pupil business or students' business. I think the students' companies give the students valuable experience. And also a lot of young girls there has the first time as a leader. And I really believe, and I can see that these women, also boys, but these women, we will see them as leaders and entrepreneurs in the future. Strong and skillful women are certainly needed in Norwegian working life, and Junior Achievement Young Enterprise is giving a very variable contribution to this issue. To sum up, both Vike and many of our members have clear strategies to collaborate to find the shared value. There are certainly challenges, especially in a work society that mainly consists of small and medium-sized enterprises. Nevertheless, it is important to find the ways of acknowledge the smaller business importance and to encourage them when working towards sustainable capitalism. Thank you.
Now we will move to our final panelist. I have therefore the pleasure to introduce to you Gunn Ovesen. Gunn Ovesen is currently the CEO of Innovation Norway. Innovation Norway is a state agency. It promotes business throughout the country, both to individual companies and to regions. And they do so by trying to inspire innovation and further internationalization of the companies. So I look forward to hear what Ms. Ovesen has to tell us.
Good morning, everyone. I feel sorry for you sitting for such a long time, so I try to move a little. I think Per Sandberg's start with Vision 2050 shows that we cannot solve the problem if we are not thinking different than we do today. If we continue the way we are doing, I think we will pass an edge which can be hard to climb up of. But I think what you heard later of what Yara and Bellona said, that how they could see a new project in Africa, shows that it is possible to do something. And I think what they have shown is that businesses together with the government, you had the minister before, we can together do something so we can make what Sandberg said was his vision possible. Innovation Norway is a government organization which our job is to enhance value creation in Norway, and innovation is a big part of the vehicle to do that. We have offices all over Norway, and we have offices in more than 30 countries, because Norway, even though we passed 5 million 2 days ago, we are a small market, so we need to export our ideas. And if we see the challenges in the world, I'm sure that Norway have a lot to put on the table here. Norway is a competent commodity country. We have developed our industries because we have a strength in commodities, and we have commodities within a lot of the areas where you can see challenges in the world today. I think we have, as been said before, water, fresh water is a problem. Not water, because 70% of us is seawater, but fresh water. And in that area we have technology in Norway developed who can do this and help part of the world. And we as a company, we have built a cluster of all these small companies going abroad to try to sell their competence within freshwater. Food, when we pass 9 million, as Yara showed you, we will have a food shortages. But Norway, we are one of the big exporters of food. We export fish, and fish is also an important protein source. And we have farmed fish, which a lot of people think about is a strength. But what I think is Norway, when I say we are a competent commodity country, is the way we have taken care of our wild stock of fish. Between Norway and Russia is one of the few places in the world where the wild fish is thriving still today. And that is because you do a lot of R&D together with the regulation of the fisheries and a good regulation of the black fisheries who have been stopping. And that means the cod is back. We have never had as much cod as this year. The herring is back. The mackerel is back and the capelin is back. All fisheries is thriving because of that. And that means you do it in a resourceful way, and that is a way to show the world. Energy. I think you have heard that energy will be... We have not enough energy in the world when we are growing, and we see the middle class and growing in Asia, in Latin America and Africa, and they need more energy. And within this area, we have our oil and gas, which is a good. We also have competence within hydro. We now sell to the world. And then we are one of the largest in knowledge of sun industry. That is not because Norway has a lot of sun, because we are very good in material and minerals. We have developed that. And then we can use our strength from the maritime to the wind energy, because if you go from maritime, you can go to wind, as maritime went before from maritime to oil and gas. Energy, water, clean environment. I've been traveling in the big cities in the world where you still can smell and eat the air like you did in London before with the smog. And I think the people in this part of the world where you have this big city, they don't accept living in these conditions. So clean environment will be one of the big things that people will crave from the government. They don't accept to eat food who is poisoned. They don't accept to drink the air, so the children cannot grow up healthy. So that means we can use something of the industry we develop of our process industry, which Yara is a part of, how to clean and make a better society. We have food, we have water, we have energy, and then what have I forgotten? Water, food, clean water, and then we have raw material. If the world is growing, they need the raw materials. I was in Ghana, and Ghana has a cement company which is developed from Norway, and their production was on the same level from 62 to 92. And then from 92 to today, they have 16 doubled their production of cement. And why do they do that? Because when they develop the world, you need steel, you need alumina, and you need concrete because you are building roads, buildings, whatever. And do you know that 83% of all different minerals in the world, we find them in Norway? So we have also that strength. So I mean that within a lot of this area where Vision 2050 and we see the world is lacking, Norway has something to put on the table. But we have only thing to put on the table within area we have our strength, because there with 5 million people we cannot do in all areas. We have to say that within this and this area we can grow. And I'm sure that we have a lot to offer. But to do this, we have to take our raw material and the people in Norway who are entrepreneurs together. And yesterday you talked about female entrepreneurs. And 2 of our female entrepreneurs the last years has been doing within the environment sector. This year, Siri Skøyen within Comlight, which has developed a way where you can travel with car and only the light be on this when you travel, and then they will put down behind you. That was not good English, but you understand what I mean. And that will reduce the energy with 80%. And when you have lightened roads, you reduce the accident by 40%, so it's very good business. And then you have Gry Cecilie Sundhagen, which develop a way to find all these poisonous things on ships, so we could do something about them. So we have the entrepreneurs also within those you talked about yesterday in Norway. So I think we can together, if we think holistic about innovation, we can make a difference. Thank you.
I will ask you to wait a little bit, because before we could start the panel discussion, I have to strike a deal with the audience. This session was supposed to be finished by 11 o'clock. It is 11 o'clock. So I have a problem. But I think that could we at least say 10 minutes? Would that be okay? I know it's tiresome to be a listener also. I was here yesterday and I was sitting listening one speaker after the other. So if you sort of feel like moving around a little bit, maybe building a partnership with the person next to you, giving him or her a hug, please feel free. And we'll take 10 minutes, okay? The first question that I would like to ask is to Mr. Myklebust. You have followed Norwegian industry and also international industry for quite a number of years. And you don't need to go back very many years before the lingo of corporate governance, good corporate governance, was the business of business is business, which is quite different from shared values and social innovation and internalizing the externalities, etc., etc. So I would like to ask you about your reflections on this development, and particularly if you had been a managing director of a company today and you were accountable to the shareholders about the profit of the business, can you then encompass all these nice words about shared values, etc., in your business plan? Please.
I think good companies today need to encompass issues of the nature you are discussing. And I do believe that, seen from the shareholder perspective, the issues we are discussing represent some of the major risks, not only for society, but also for businesses. And to use a phrase coined by the managing director of the World Business Council a few years ago, business cannot succeed in a society that fails. So that part of it, I don't see any contradiction in pursuing business primary targets, which is to supply technology, innovation, production, productivity, new products. I don't see any contradiction between that and, as a consequence of that, being able to maintain and uphold over the years a good return, and the fact that you are including sustainability on your agenda. But what I would say is that it is very important to understand that business exists for some purposes beside running a sustainable business. Or put it maybe a different way, a sustainable business has to survive to be sustainable. And a business which are very good on the kind of sustainability, which is the issue here, but which does not succeed in handling the day-to-day business and the long-term strategies from an economical and from a return point of view, is of no value to Fredrik Hauge. Mm-hmm. Fredrik Hauge, taking care of some of the interests within social society, needs to find alliances with business who are able to cope with their fundamental task, namely to provide wealth, to provide jobs, to provide incomes, to contribute with knowledge and competencies in many innovative issues. That has to be the primary thing for a business. You need to deal with the reason why you are there. And business is not, in a way, a democratic institution. But business is a precondition for developing a democratic development and a sustainable development. I don't see the contradiction. I don't think shareholders do either, when they are considering the risk element of not coping with these issues and the opportunity elements of doing it.
That is useful to know that. I can say from my own account that sometimes when we meet the investor in London or in New York, you hear a different story. But it's good to hear and have the support from you in that you have to think with two goals. I would like then to turn to, since you mentioned Mr. Hauge, you have gone from civil disobedience to cooperations as your method of work. Do you think that business is moving fast enough? Because we don't have much time in order to reach the goals.
Just let me clarify.
Sure, but you only have a few seconds.
I think that more than ever, with the challenge we have, that I'm willing to be arrested in different issues. I don't see any contradiction between that and try to find solutions, because this is not a single alarm lamp blinking. This is a complete full discotheque blinking. And I must say that I was more optimistic some years ago on that we should get the industry, the existing industry, with us in some solutions and development. When I started to work, you were in the management of Hydro, and I went down there and digged up mercury. And now I'm working together with Yara, that is placed on the same locations. And the last 5 days I've been working all 24/7 to try to create framework for a renewable energy company down at Herøya. So we have a long history back for the storytelling. And I see people in the business community that wants to do good. And I see a lot of people that doesn't care. And I'm very afraid of the dependence we get in the Norwegian society on the very, very high activity within the oil sector. When you look at the renewable energy company like REC at Herøya, the very strong price of the krone, how the salaries is run up by the oil industry and so on, does it really difficult for many companies to use Norway as a home market to develop the technologies? And that's why also we have emphasized so much to go out and work internationally. And I think that there is no black and white on this, but I'm afraid of the oil companies and the value chain around the oil industry's influence in the Norwegian society. I think that we risk to be extremely conservative in the transition. The last year I've been very privileged. I've been working as an advisor for the European Union's Energy Commissioner on the Roadmap 2050. They spent last year 340 billion euros to import, and that was only oil. We earn that money. We don't see the need for that transition. That's the main reason for the financial crisis in Europe. We have to change that, and that's why energy production in a new way is going to happen.
Well, I know that you have a lot to say to us, but we have to move on. And I think that... all I can say is that you're among friends here, so we will not be arrested, okay? Mrs. Madsen, you wanted to
I think of
comment?
what you asked Mikkel about, and you said what I hope that this is not an issue now for the business top managers to actually work with. And I think another thing that's important is that we look into the trends now. The young people The young people educated from the universities coming out now, they are quite aware of their own insight, their knowledge, but they have respect for sort of competence and how the business are run. And what we can see is that the trends are there among the young people, that they are looking for those businesses that actually Miklopus now were talking about, the businesses that have this take this responsibility and has integrated that in their strategy. So that means that every small or big businesses, they want to have good people. And in that competition about talents, you need to have this in your business.
Thank you. I think that I have many questions on my list, but I will then finish with the last question to you, Mr. Hasselstad. I think I get a little tired myself here now. Yara, in many ways, they have come a long way in the pursuit for the goals, and I think that for many you are a good example. However, there will also be people saying that it's easy for Yara. Yara is in the right business. It's easy to understand and to see what you shall do in the global challenge. So now I'll put you in the position we are not in Yara anymore. You are going back to work on Monday, and you're going to give the audience 3 good advice on what they shall do to become a sustainable company.
Make sure, as Miklopus said, that your businesses is aligned for a sustainable future, making money. You have to be able to, for the shareholders also then to say this is a sustainable company. I will, being then taking social responsibility, helping the environment, I will also then help you shareholders then to make money. To be engaged with the right institutions, well, we have many of them, to also promote your ideas, because this is, and I would say, not only institutions but also then governmental bodies, because this is something which we also then, Per Sandberg said, this is something which we cannot do alone. We have to do this in some sort of a new joint venture, where we actually then are making sure that we can do this together, seeing then the different scopes of each other to achieve what we want to. And then the third thing is to make sure that your brand is not damaged in whatever way, making sure that you think about your brand, making sure that the brand is also something that the people would like to see, like to hear about, and like to buy from in many years to come.
Thank you. Thank you to all the panelists. And I think that we have to round off this session. But I would like to say to all of you that we have talked a lot about cooperation and collaboration in order to achieve the goals. So now it's up to you too. Go home and change the world. Thank you.
Hey, Tom. Ladies and gentlemen, I see that everybody's standing up to take a break, but actually what we're doing is we're taking the break, and I'm sorry, but we actually have a rather tight-packed program for you that's going to go up until 12, and at that point, that's when we're going to break. What we have for you next here on stage is a musical number. We don't want you to miss it. If you have to, we'll understand, but we'd rather that you didn't. We've got a short musical number, and we're going to follow that with a quick set of talks by business leaders who are going to talk about some of the essential practices that they're up to. So please don't leave just yet, and you'll get a chance to stretch your legs at 12 o'clock.
We're going to do 2 excerpts for you from 2 different operas. The one is from Wagner opera, but don't worry, it will not take 3 hours, but I will stand probably most still on stage when I do this song, and it's one of the most beautiful songs, I think. It's from Tannhäuser, and Wolfgang, he sings, "Oh, du mein Wunder Abendstern, you my beautiful evening star," to the girl he loves. Das character to it. Therefore, first of all, I'm going to take my shirt out of my pants. I'm also going to take off my jacket. Because this next guy is very happy man. He doesn't have so much money, doesn't have so many things, but he's happy. He's happy because he got his girl, he got his Lord, and he got his song.
Well, that was a great performance. We couldn't pass up the chance. I mean, we are here at the Norwegian Opera and Ballet, and they've got extraordinary talent here, of course, as you know. So the Norwegian Opera and Ballet is one of the key organizers that's helped us to pull together the Partnership for Change for the second year. And so it was great to be able to have Yngve Andrea Søberg on vocals present for you, and Marcus Kvitz on piano. So we're going to keep the sessions moving along at a fairly fast clip now, since we've got a lot to cover in just less than an hour before we break for lunch. Our next session is going to focus on new ways of thinking and essential practices in business, and hopefully to focus on some of the practical ways that businesses are dealing with these issues that we've been talking about this morning, about sustainability in business and the role of business in trying to address some of these social challenges that we all face. So to introduce our next session, it's a great honor to bring on yet another distinguished leader, somebody who hardly needs an introduction. He's been in politics for many years, the better part of a quarter of a century, in fact. He's the former president of Finland, and even also headed up the EU presidency during Finland's head of the presidency for about 6 months. Altogether, he has something like 24 years in Finnish politics. It's a great pleasure to have him with us. I should say that in a former life, he was like me, just a humble journalist. But it shows that, that even a journalist can have a dignified future. Here he is, Paavo Lipponen.
I'm just a humble pensioner today. Mr. Prime Minister, dear Kjell Magne, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like first to express my appreciation of being able to participate in the Oslo Center activity as a member of the Board of Trustees, and also how impressed I am by the activities of the Center under the leadership of Kjell Magne Bondevik. It's really fantastic what you've achieved in the work for human rights, democracy, sustainable development, and this conference is just, it shows what Norway is today in working to solve the global problems. We'll hear today about concrete cases. We are looking forward to the panelists' presentations. I'll just briefly take if you let me take the macro view. That is, in the fundamental shift in the economic balance of power towards Asia, the highly developed Western countries and their companies must adjust and find a new role. That is, low costs are no longer the most important factor for competitiveness for us. So one of the prerequisites is maintaining the lead in knowledge-based activities, relying on a high level of education. And another second central factor is an adequate supply of qualified labor, which again underlines the importance of securing good education for the entire population in our countries. And thirdly, our societies must function well to be competitive. That is, openness and a high level of trust are essential systemic qualities for innovation, because that's what we particularly depend our societies. According to Jeffrey Sachs, those were actually more or less the secrets behind the rise of Finland to number one post in world competitiveness ranking in 2002. I refrained from mentioning who was Prime Minister at that time. But significantly, Finland that year also made number one position in sustainable development ranking. And that was very much due to the change in the behavior of our companies. Big leading companies like Nokia, but also small and medium-sized companies gave their contribution. Changing the game is a good title for the fundamental process we need to undergo in our economies. Sustainable development is a general direction, but it must be combined with cooperation and networking on a global level. About Finland, we can see the reorientation in the traditional basic industries like paper and steel. Leading companies like UPM and Stora are investing in the production of biofuels. That is a very promising new direction. They are making, for example, nanotechnology to work in pulp production, resulting in higher efficiency. The logistics equipment company Cargotec is making ships and harbors cut their fuel and material need in a spectacular way with their so-called pro-future label. Cleantech
is becoming a major branch in Finnish industry, sponsored by our technology agency. It is like the innovation agency of Norway, I believe. A major chemicals company, Kemira, is aiming at #1 status globally in clean water technology and develops new recycling methods for their clients. Actually, Kemira sold its fertilizer branch to Mr. Hasselstad, to Yara, just some years ago. But both these companies are working in the same direction. To save the Baltic Sea, companies in the coastal countries are making pledges to make their contribution within the framework of Baltic Sea Action Group, which organizes biannual state and company leaders summits where pledges are made and monitored, how to contribute to saving the Baltic Sea. And among the participants, we've seen President Tarja Halonen, Chancellor Angela Merkel, and Prime Minister Vladimir Putin. And finally, we've got the Northern Dimension policy, particularly the environmental partnership, that has resulted in spectacular achievements in cleaning wastewaters and handling the nuclear waste in northwestern Russia. So these are just examples of what we can do on a company level and a political level and reach real results. Ladies and gentlemen, I also need to mention that there are also Finnish soloists singing this opera. And Jukka-Pekka Saraste is here this week directing, so we've also got the great cultural connection. Thank you very much. I wish all the best to the Oslo Center and, of course, all the companies and organizations involved here. Thank you so much.
We had originally talked about maybe doing a panel, but we're pressed for time, and so I think we're going to pass on the panel. So what we're going to do instead is bring on a handful of speakers. We're not going to do the panel, so...
Thank you.
Mr. Lipponen came to me before we started here, and he says, "You're not going to make me moderate, are you?" He says, "I've done some moderating, but not very much, and I think you're probably more comfortable with politics than with journalism at this point."
So you won't moderate me?
No. No, okay. I think most of the job of moderating is almost done. We only have a few more speakers. Most of the speakers we have left are actually going to be talking about some of the specific innovative projects that they're working on that are changing the game in business. And our next speaker is Kjetil Bønn. He's actually like us, in a former life, a humble journalist. He's moved on to bigger and better things, in this case founding a green technology company, one that works to mitigate the harmful effects of chemical fertilizers. So we're going to let him take over. Thank you so much. In all humility. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is, Kjetil Bønn. Can't hear anything?
Yeah.
Possible. Everybody wants their presentation to be bright and focusing on the positive aspects of life. Unfortunately, I have to start in the negative territory but bear with me, it will get better after a while. Until 2000, nobody really cared about the agriculture industry, at least not in the financial community. And that's not so strange, because for 100 years, we were able to produce more food, basically meeting demand, of course, for some exceptions. And because of that, relative food prices dropped through that entire period. But in 2000, something happened. And in 2000, food prices started to increase again, and for the last decade, it has more than doubled. What is the reason for that? There's many reasons for that, but one of the reasons can be seen here. This is US wheat production over the last 50 years. And while we have been able to increase yield with 50%, it has come at a cost, because we are using now 250% of the most essential nutrition, which is nitrogen. And we have come to the point in many markets where we simply cannot just add 1 more kilo of nitrogen and get the same yield response. The soil degradation doesn't paint a prettier picture either. We have basically degraded an area of the size of China and India combined since the Second World War. And looking at water pollution, we have created, if combined, a belt that will be 1 kilometer around the equator of Dead Sea, as a result of how we have run our agriculture picture. As a father, this is a picture that frightens me. I don't know how it is in other countries, but in Norway everybody runs around talking about proteins and carbohydrates. They should really be focusing on the nutritional content of food. This is again from the US. It's salad production, it's tomato and spinach. What we can see, there is a drop in magnesium, 84%, phosphorus, 82% magnesium, 84% drop in phosphorus, and 96% drop in iron. And this is not only to do with obesity, this relates to all the major disease problems that we have: cancer, heart disease, mental disorder. So something needs to be done, both to produce enough food and to produce the right quality food. Fortunately, there's a lot of companies who is working with it, not only Agrinas, also the large mineral fertilizer companies, the large pesticide company, and of course Yara that was presenting here earlier today. But one extremely important aspect that has been ignored and overlooked for a very long time is soil fertility and the microbial life in soil. The most essential part of biology is the photosynthesis. That's basically where the plant takes CO2 and transforms it into energy, into sugar. And the plant takes that sugar and sends 60% of it out through its root system into the soil. And the plant is not stupid. It doesn't do that for fun. It do that to get anything in return. And what it gets in return is microbial life that take nutrition and move it back to the plant. So how important is this microbial ecosystem for modern agriculture? I realize that the slide behind me is slightly on the technical side, but bear with me, I will try to explain it to you. This is a research done by the Washington State University, and it compares soil that has been used for cultivation for a period of time with neighboring soil. And the first column here shows the drop in organic matter. Organic matter is really where in the soil that we store nutrition and is what makes the soil structure right. The next 4 columns are enzymes. Enzymes produced by microbial life. These enzymes are those that take the nutrition and deliver it to the plant. And here's a decrease in 40 to 90%. And when those enzymes are not present in the soil, we have to use a lot more mineral fertilizer to be efficient. Because of this drop in soil fertility, the reality is today that 50% of all the mineral fertilizer used on a global scale will never ever benefit the plant. Nitrogen will oxidize, become a greenhouse gas 300 times more potent than CO2. Potassium will leach out, phosphorus will get stuck in the soil. And don't get me wrong, mineral fertilizer are one of the most important inventions of the last century, and we will be between 3 and 4 billion people less on this planet without it. But we simply have to use it more efficiently. A greenhouse, we produce a set of biological products, and I don't have the time today to explain in detail what we are doing, but we are basically increasing soil fertility. And put simplistically, what we are doing is to try to make other input factors like mineral fertilizer more efficient. We are trying to take the columns that you saw, push them back, and hopefully over on the other side. I will show you, before I end this, I will show you some results of what we can do with these technologies. This is the UK last year, 55 trials in potatoes, 14% yield increase in average. Not a staggering number, but these are some of the highest yielding potato fields in the world, taking the yield from 66 to 75 tons and so on, 10 tons more per hectare. And to give you a reference, average yield potato in Norway is 30 tons, Ukraine 20, and Russia 20. And it has something to do with quality. The black spots that you see behind me on some of these potatoes are basically fungus. But when we place a good microbial ecosystem in the soil, that fungus is outcompeted for space and nutrition. Malaysia paints the same picture. This is a scientific study on Ganoderma. Again, a fungus that are now threatening 40% of the palm oil plantations in Malaysia. And if those palm oil plantations are ruined, they're going to cut down more forests to plant new palm oil to keep production. From a financial perspective, we probably shouldn't be engaged in Africa. We should probably stick to the UK, Netherlands, and Spain. But our technology most likely has the highest relative impact both on yield and human life in Africa. So we have chosen to engage in a number of projects in Africa. And it makes me feel proud when a study comes back and it states that we have unprecedented results in the country. And of course, this is coming from a low point, but it shows the tremendous force of nature. And then we have Mexico, which is really our home market, where we have commercial customers that today cultivate more than 1.5 million hectares. And to give you a reference, that is about 4 times the entire Norwegian agriculture industry if you look away from grassland production. 6 years ago, I don't know if I can even say this, the University of Gunyato, as close as I get, ran a water efficiency trial using our product, and it showed a water efficiency increase between 33 and 58%. That is important, knowing that 70% of the fresh water on this planet are used for agricultural purposes. Equally important, in my mind, is that they also studied the soil before and after these 2 crop cycles. And what it showed was an increase in organic matter, increase in available nutrition in the soil. So with a biological strategy, you don't deplete the soil, you build it, and you store carbon, and you can produce even more in the 3rd season. But having these results, having these technologies is not really enough. It's only half of it. And you have to build a vehicle to take that to market. And my role as a founder, I guess, was maybe to set aside some of my own personal aspiration and try to find the best both human and financial resources to build that vehicle. So we went to the person that we thought would be the best, Dr. Torleif Enger, who was then just stepped down as the CEO of Yara and was still the president of the International Fertilizer Union. And he was skeptical, like everybody is, and I guess many of you are, that this could really be true. So he made his own due diligence, but he came back after a couple of months, and he joined us both as an investor and our chairman, and since then we have not really looked back. And as I said, we have built now a company, 300 employees in 14 countries. We had a turnover last year of $28 million, a figure that we think we're going to triple almost this year. Brings me down to the end of my presentation. Part of the reason for our development is this. In April last year, the Mexican President Calderón announced a 10-year program to increase agriculture production in Mexico in a sustainable way. This program, often referred to as the second Green Revolution, of course the first one came also from Mexico, has the ambition to transform Mexican agriculture, the subsidy program, covering a staggering 14 million hectares into sustainable farming practicing by implementing biological strategies. It's an extreme bold move, and it's the first time a country has really gone from talking about sustainability to doing something about it in a scale that really matters. And Agrinos has been chosen as the main supplier to this program. That brings me back to where I started. Our vision, and based on our results and this contract with the Mexican government, we believe that we either have to stick to this vision or find somebody else to run this company. So I leave it to your judgment to decide if you believe that this is possible based on my short presentation. And if anyone wonder how big-scale professional farming in Norway look like, this is it. Thanks a lot for the opportunity.
So often when we talk about sustainability in business, the conversation tends to get lost in abstraction. And so I, for one, am very excited about some of these practical ways in which businesses are managing to address some of these important social needs and also turn a profit. We have a few more presenters who are going to talk about specific ways in which they're doing that. And our next presenter is Helge Gallefoss, and he has a very exciting project called Fjord IT, which he's going to talk about. Something that I really look forward to hearing more about in the future. He's a successful Norwegian entrepreneur with a number of successful startups under his belt, dating back to the early 80s. Treffpunkt, WorkZone, Media Lab, Network Link, the AHA network. Some of you know the rock band AHA. Some of you probably wish you didn't. In any case, the network was one of his side projects in the early 2000s. As I say, he's on to new ventures, and he's here to tell us about his latest project. Ladies and gentlemen, Helge Gallefoss.
Thank you. Dear all, thanks for still sitting in this little sitting marathon. I'll try to be quick. This session is about changing the game, which for me means creating sustainable value change. So it's about green data power. It's about a $250 billion global market. It's about an industry that pollutes more than the global air traffic. You didn't know that, did you? It's about you and me using cloud services. And we are doing that in a very fast-growing way. So it's expected to have 50 times growth within 2020, which is huge. And how can we meet these challenges? That's what I'm going to talk about. So let's have a look at what happens in a server room that is powering the cloud. It's going 10 kilowatt into that rack. That rack is getting power from the UPS. We lose 10%. And then all that is going up to heat, and then we use coolers to take that heat out of the room, which adds 1.5 times as much power. And then we lose probably 10% in the grid, which means 10 kilowatt into this rack means almost 30 kilowatt produced from the turbines. But there is another way to do it. It's a new technology coming with UPSs, and we can use passive cooling. It's cold here in Norway, if you do it smart. And if we move the computing close to where the power is produced, the energy mass is so much better. So it's possible to almost have one-to-one, which is what we are trying to do. To do this, we have partnered up with big players as Cisco, EMC, VMware. They have made an industry consortium together called VCE, Virtual Computing Environment. This is state-of-the-art technology, and these solutions can power the cloud market for massive expansion. But why should we succeed with this? Why should Fjord IT succeed, and why should we succeed here from Norway? Well, we have some assets here. We have a cold climate, as we love it. We have hydropower, as we use it. Almost all power in Norway is hydropower. And we have a stable economy, and we have pretty stable politics also. And we have a stable geology, which is important. We are not sitting on top of a volcano, but in the middle of a tectonic plate. So we have some advantages here in Norway. And there are several very interesting initiatives on different locations in Norway. Lefdal announced at the project last summer together with IBM. Rjukan has 2 projects going on. Green Mountain, Rennesøy, is doing data hosting in a native bunker. And the state company Entra has just launched Greenfield outside Oslo. And there are a few other projects as well. We have partnered with some of these locations, and we found a very good spot to launch our Green Data Power Lighthouse project. And now we're going to watch a little movie from Nås Kalkstensbrud in Molde. The mine is taking out white marble, used as an environmentally friendly replacement of chloride in glossy paper. The business is the most efficient mine in Europe, using unique techniques to take out and distribute the product. And the byproduct is excavated stable mountain holes and the biggest free air radiator in Norway, or maybe Europe. And it's 42 kilometers of tunnels. And inside it's 6 to 8 degrees all year. So the heat from the servers that we put in here, they will heat the visitor center, as you can see here. And it will be free cooling, as the mountain temperature is way below what we need to cool the servers. We also filed a patent application to balance the air correctly into the servers. And our partners, Cisco, EMC, VMware, will make this project an international lighthouse project on green IT. We also partnered with world-known architect Michael Paulin, who built the Eden biomes, and he's recognized as a pioneer in biomimicry, how to use good ideas from nature in architecture. Listen to his speech on TED.com, it's interesting. Michael Paulin is also one of the founders of the Sahara Forest Project. And we're now building the first server room just beside the lake at Bergtatt in this visitor center. And let's have a look at Michael's first server room sketch. This drawing made our data partners a bit nervous. They felt that the water was a bit too close to the servers. So we have been working on it, and this is the next rendering. This is really cool. This is kind of James Bond, isn't it? So this is the lake where you saw the little ferry coming in. So that's what we're working on. So let's have a look at our business, our value chain here. How can we do this? We have a location with no cooling cost. We have power from a nearby hydropower plant, if we start on the bottom here. We have best-of-breed hardware and software. And we have a carrier transporting what we are producing here over fiber, sending out photons with no energy loss at all, compared to distributing high-voltage power over copper. And then we are reaching our wholesale clients, where they can add value on the resources, and they can customize and adapt their business to the clients. Everyone in the business chain adds value, and the green story here is a shared value. All the way through the whole system, it's bidirectional. We all need less greenhouse gases emitted from the business we are delivering. This is our concept, a bidirectional chain of shared values. And this is our vision, to be the leading European provider of wholesale green cloud services. And we want to inspire awareness and change towards a sustainable planet. Both is important. We think that what we are doing should inspire others to think about what they can do to make a sustainable society. And we want to build a new industry in Norway. So potential clients and investors are welcome to talk with me anytime. And Monica, James, Lars, Einar, Robert, Chris, John, Nico, Ingrid, please stand up. Thank you for being here. Thank you for our little partnership for change.
Our next presenter is works in the food industry and heads up the company Bama, which many Norwegians are well familiar with. It's one of the largest food companies and also one of the oldest privately owned companies here in Norway. It's headquartered here in Oslo and has activities in Sweden, Holland, Poland, and is well known as an importer of fruits, vegetables, and processed foods. And what's distinctive about it is the way that it's helping us to rethink ethical trade. Here to talk about that now is Øyvind Briso. Please help me welcome.
It's getting close to lunchtime. Hopefully there will be some good fruit and vegetables in the lobby. We buy fruit and vegetables from 80 different countries. We have world-class suppliers. But we work directly with our growers, and we will often also meet difficult situations, different cultures, and challenging situations. Working directly with our growers exposes us to their daily lives and their daily concerns. These concerns may vary in many ways. There will be poor family economy. There could be lack of formal working contracts, lack of freedom of association, discrimination, and the list could go on. In this situation, or in these situations, we basically have three choices. One is to close our eyes and pretend not to see what we actually observe firsthand. Another choice is to ask a third party to check our supplier, check the processes, and eventually certify our grower. The third approach is to embark on joint processes on the ground with our suppliers and relevant stakeholders. We have chosen the latter approach. This is by no means the easiest methodology, but we firmly believe it is the most sustainable one because it involves real dialogue, it implies, it fosters involvement, and it stimulates processes of improvement. Situations will be different from place to place, and we as buyers have to be sensitive to this. But there is a baseline. Respecting people's right and respecting their lives, people's right to improve their lives is an integral part of our way of working. Our way is dialogue, and we encourage dialogue wherever we are and in whatever situation we are in. Social dialogue is a powerful mechanism when you blend the interest of businesses, the interests of civil society and organizations, and governments. And it's proven its strength again and again in many countries. Yesterday, I had the opportunity in the session called Inspiring Collaboration to explore on a buying situation in Costa Rica. One of the important issues I made there is that we have a very fruitful cooperation with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Norway and the Norwegian Employers Organization Virke, as well as the Norwegian Federation of Trade Unions, LO, which directly support our strategy in Costa Rica. This has catalyzed our efforts big time. And to me, this is an example to be multiplied. I will now introduce you in a few moments to a video. This video shows a substantially different situation. And we're going to the Jordan Valley, and I leave the video to you.
Frukt og grønnsaker, og varene kommer fra hele verden. I enkelte land der Bama kjøper produkter, er det store utfordringer knyttet til arbeidsforhold, miljø, fattigdom og konflikter. Som stor importør og innkjøper har Bama en betydelig kommersiell kraft, noe som gir dem en mulighet til å gjøre en forskjell der de er. Mange norske forbrukere er opptatt av den israelsk-palestinske konflikten. Obama er blitt kritisert for å handle med Israel.
Noen forbrukere ønsker helt klart å ha et valg i forhold til denne betente situasjonen som er mellom israelere og palestinere. Da er det vår oppgave å finne løsninger på det og gi et tilbud da til forbruker.
For Bama var det naturlig å gå via sin israelske leverandør Meadrin for å få hjelp til å finne en palestinsk produsent.
First of all, I ask why? Why we need it?
Meadrin var nok i utgangspunktet overrasket og litt spørrende til hvordan vi tenkte.
And after we heard what Bama asked us, we decide that if such important customer asks us, maybe it's a good idea. Let's help him.
Bama fikk kontakt med Palestine Garden, som holder til i Jordandalen på Vestbredden. Hos Palestine Garden ble invitasjonen til samarbeid godt mottatt.
I felt really very much encouraged about this, and I felt that this is a very important approach, and we have to be responsible to meet the demand.
Handelssamarbeid i områder med konflikt er komplisert. Varene fra Vestbredden må gjennom Israel for så skippes til Europa. Og alt som skal ut av Vestbredden må gjennom strenge sikkerhetskontroller. Men for at varene skal holdes friske, må transporten skje raskt. Partene har derfor funnet løsninger som gjør logistikken så smidig som mulig. En annen utfordring var at de palestinske produktene ikke oppfylte Bamas kvalitetskrav.
Når det gjelder det med kvalitet, så har vi brukt mye tid og ressurser på å hjelpe til med å vise hvordan produksjonen skal være for det norske markedet. Så våre kvalitetsansvarlige har vært nede flere ganger, vist hvordan det skal gjøres.
Produktene har nå en høyere kvalitet, produksjonen har økt, og det har åpnet nye markeder for Palestine Garden. Foreløpig tjener ikke Bama mye penger på den palestinske importen, men jobber langsiktig for å styrke det palestinske jordbruket. Trepartssamarbeidet har så langt vært vellykket, og alle har tro på at handel bidrar positivt til den vanskelige situasjonen.
I think the trade between Palestinian companies and Israeli companies will provide good atmosphere to the area.
The economic growth in Palestine will definitely be a message for the peace process.
Det å produsere på fruktbar jord, få solgt varene sine, det er med på å kunne gi et samfunn et livsgrunnlag. Og handel kan vi være med til å stimulere, og på denne måten så tror vi på de små stedene, de knappenålshodene vi er rundt omkring i verden, kan bidra litt til en forskjell. Thank you.
Our next speaker, as we begin to wind down the morning session this morning, is Nils Everås. He's the Nordic Director for Corporate Citizenship at Accenture, as well as Country Managing Director for Accenture Norway, a position he's held for the past 10 years. And I don't need to tell you how influential Accenture is in the world of business. As one of the world's preeminent management consulting companies, the fact that they're talking about things like social responsibility, corporate citizenship, and ethical business practices is really no small thing. So please give a warm hand to Nils Överås.
Good to see you. Thank you. I should probably do a stand-up comedian show to keep you on your toes, but anyhow, I'll try to keep it brief and interesting as I can. I recall some years back when I listened to Myklebust here. I started my career as a research scientist in the space shuttle program in the US. And if you recall back, some of you were present, others have seen it on TV, President Kennedy stating in the early 60s that they wanted to put a man on the moon by the end of the decade. I mean, I think that envisions what we need today. It was optimism, it was a young president at the time, it represented youth. And the third factor was actually competition, because he wanted to be there before the Russians or the Soviet Union at that time, even though it mainly happened in Russia. So I think that's a core factor, and I share Myklebust's way of optimism in that sense. We started this session today with one of my employees, Per Sandberg, and one of the reasons that we employed Per was to have sort of an expert within the field of sustainability and link us into the world, to the business community that actually is working in this field. If I look at the CSR agenda, what Per represents is actually the commercial part of our business within sustainability, where we actually sell services and work with other companies on sustainability projects. Just to mention a couple of initiatives that we naturally are involved in as a consulting company, where integration and making consortiums are an important thing of what they do is the smart city programs that actually utilizes all the 9 pillars of what Per mentioned this morning, where you naturally have to have several companies and government and NGOs involved in order to reach the goals that are set to improve the way the world works and lives in the cities, where a majority of the 9 billion people will live in 2050. So that is a particular area, and I think that since we've had the former Prime Minister of the Netherlands here, Smart City Amsterdam is one of the bigger programs we are running. We had the former Prime Minister of Finland, and Turku is also a city where we're working these days to test out new concepts. And I'm pleased to say that also here in Norway with Oslo, and in particular now with the focus in Bærum, and what the Ministry is doing in Ministry of Environment is focusing on the cities of the future. These programs will be important in order to improve how the cities will work. And I think also the component of the people component is certainly important there. And then to mention another pillar, being a consultant company, we need to walk the talk. So and the environment part is important for us. And if we look at how we are doing that, we've set targets to reduce our carbon footprint by 40% by 2015. And that is sort of to show that it's possible, even though we're not producing much. Brain power is something, but I mean, we travel a lot, we have buildings around the globe, and we're using then external rankings to a large extent to see how we compare between each others, and develops new ways of working that actually then can be utilized in cooperation with the clients we're working with. So I think reducing travel, in order to do that, you need to work more virtually and be efficient in the way you operate in virtual environments, which is a good way of looking into the future and reach the zero energy target that Per talked about this morning. Then walking the talk internally, that means using the ISO certification, the 14001, on our own buildings around the globe, competing between the different 52 countries and 52 countries where we have buildings and offices, and 120 countries where we operate, is actually setting up competition between the countries to be most energy efficient, both among the employees and also the way we utilize our buildings. The last part I want to mention is related to our broader corporate citizenship program. Being a company of 250,000 employees now makes it quite hard to sort of set some common targets and goals, and get everybody to agree on that. So we anchored around the UN Millennium Goals back in 2009 to set a target to equip 250,000 people with the skills to get a job or build a business. And in order to operationalize that, we needed cooperating partners, and that is mainly the NGOs and the non-profit organizations in order to be able to run projects around the globe. I've held the position as the Global Director for Corporate Citizenship in Accenture, and to reach that target, to skill 250,000 people by 2015 as part of the Millennium Goal, has been a challenging target. And as analytical consultants, we are then breaking that down to targets for our 15 regions where we operate, Nordic being one of them. And then everybody comes up with ideas in order to build up to that target. I'm pleased to say that we will certainly reach that target within this calendar year, I guess. So we will have to set new target in that respect. This has sort of moved our people in one common direction, and we've seen a lot of interesting projects. My 3-year budget in this area has been $100 million, combining cash that we give to the NGOs, but also time that we do. We set up pro bono projects together with the NGOs. I spoke yesterday at the session here about our 10-year cooperation with Save the Children, mostly our local projects. But I think the fact that we are running global programs, also with companies, with NGOs like Save. We have other cooperating partners like the International Red Cross, Plan, YBI, and Vivek Amund-Madsen mentioned young entrepreneurship, junior achievement. We're also working with them globally. I was in China last year, where we're actually training at 28 universities together with JA, training young Chinese students in entrepreneurship. That is not very the thing you would find the most of at that level in China. So they really appreciate the ability to be trained in entrepreneurship. We also had the cooperation with Virke on young entrepreneurship on the competition here in Norway last year. That was on the high school level, Enterprise Without Borders, where the young students actually set up companies across borders. Norwegian students and others in Europe cooperate with companies and students in Africa in order to import goods across the borders and learn a lot by setting up those companies. And I think this mix of having opportunities for my own employees around the globe is important for employee engagement. It is, as was stated earlier, important for a knowledge-based company to engage the young generation. And we see that a lot of our people also engage in volunteering activities. Those will, of course, be different in different parts of the world. You will have volunteering week in Brazil, working in the favelas. That's not the same as you would do here in Norway, where you mainly work with immigrants, with the asylum seekers in the camps, different projects that we have together with them. So I think this is a matter of engaging people and creating optimism. And of course, I agree with the former Hydro CEO that I think we will resolve most of the problems. But I think cooperation is then pretty necessary in order to get there. I think Per would agree with me that we had expected that the takeoff of the sustainability practice would have been a bit steeper. But we now see a lot of good movement, and we continue to be optimists. Thank you very much. I'll stop there. So.
Thank you very much. We've reached our final presentation for the general session this morning, and it's one that I know many of you have been looking forward to very much, as I have. And it builds nicely on what Nils Averos was just talking about regarding engaging young people. I want to remind you that our conference at Partnership for Change 2013 will focus on young people and the empowerment of the next generation. So we're thrilled to have with us Kate Robertson, who will be our final speaker, as I mentioned, for the general session. And the fact, I mean, very few people can speak as passionately to the whole question of empowering the next generation as Kate Robertson. She grew up in apartheid South Africa, as you may know, and her views have been shaped to a large degree by the leadership of people like Nelson Mandela and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. She believes that our shared humanity is what connects us and helps to make the world a better place. So though she comes out of more than 2 decades in the advertising industry, she has founded One Young World to help realize the vision that is embodied in some of these great leaders. One Young World gives young people a chance to meet their counterparts from every country. It's sort of built on the same model as the Olympics, the Olympic Games. And one of the great things about it is that it brings together some of today's most inspirational leaders, not unlike some of the speakers we've had here over the past couple of days. People like Bob Geldof, Senator John Kerry, and Nobel Peace Laureates like Kofi Annan and Muhammad Yunus to serve as young world counselors, is what they call them. So without further ado, please welcome Kate Robertson.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I know that you're all dying to get to lunch, and you've got the organizers backstage saying to everybody, be quick, be quick, be quick. So I will be as quick as I can. Firstly, thank you so much to Ingrid and Nikolai for inviting me to be here. I'm here not representing myself. I'm here to represent the future generation of young leaders. Why? As an older person myself and as a mother with one daughter who's 20 years old, there comes a time in your life where you look at what you've achieved if you're any kind of leader, whether it's in business or in government or in the civil society or just as a citizen. And you do have to ask yourself what you've achieved and if you left the world a better place. And I think for lots of us, especially in this 21st century, we do look and say, we're not so wholly convinced of that. If you look at the gatherings that most of us as adults attend, you can imagine a gathering for a week where every single CEO of every single major corporation in the world, every single leader of a country, most of the leaders of NGOs gather together for a week. And then, guess what? Nothing changes. The impacts of climate change continue unfettered. The global financial crisis comes upon us, and guess what? All of that leadership just didn't see it coming. Can you imagine what it is like for our children at 20 years old to look at that and go and think that they should respect us and that we are delivering for them? We can't even provide a simple set of solutions. I, for one, believe that mankind is a miracle in itself. We are absolutely the cleverest, most amazing things that ever appeared. If you're religious like me, I believe someone made me, but whichever way, mankind is a clever beast. There is nothing we face on this planet that we cannot fix. Nothing. Save for natural disasters, and we're busy causing some of those. So I don't understand, I really don't understand why some of the issues that young people face and the world face are not being fixed. I don't understand. And I refuse to understand. I'm not prepared to accept that that's just the way it is. If that's just the way it is, then we are really stupid. And I'm convinced that we are failing our children. And as a mother, I can't live with that. 3 years ago, my boss, David Jones, and I led the campaign against the impacts of climate change for Kofi Annan, leading up to the COP15 talks in Copenhagen. And it was inspirational to work with Mr. Annan, And our campaign called the Tick, Tick, Tick campaign was very well supported in this region, as indeed around the world. And I went to Copenhagen. We had 15 million followers at that point, or 15 million saying they supported the campaign, whatever you call it. By far the biggest campaign. The next biggest was about 4 million supporters. Mr. Anand was not there. But the thing that shocked me as an ordinary citizen, I'm not ordinarily an activist myself, was that there were 17,000 people standing outside the Bella Center in Copenhagen. And those of you from the north, you know about cold. I'm from the south. I don't know about cold. Minus 17 degrees centigrade. I think it's very cold. These 17,000 people standing on that barrier outside the Bella Center were absolutely freezing, holding their placards, saying, give us a deal on climate change, save the planet, give us climate justice. Inside the Bella Center were mainly old people like me, officials from the United Nations, heads of government, mayors of cities. No one in the Bella Center had the courage to go out to the barrier to tell those young people that they were wasting their time, that there wasn't even the rudiments of a deal on the table, and that the United Nations itself does not even provide the process and the protocol for anything to change. I'm a very sunny, optimistic person myself. I come from a sunny country. I don't get depressed. I cried all night. I cried that night in that beautiful Nim hotel, the most expensive hotel I've ever stayed in my life. I wept all night for shame that I didn't have the courage to go to those young people freezing outside and say, you know what, you can go home. We have failed you again. We were last month, the end of January, at the World Economic Forum in Davos. Outside in the very cold again, a small, motley little group of people, I guess Nikolai, you'd call them hippies, part of the Occupy movement, staging their process in the snow, a few hundred yards away from the Congress Center. I'm not proud of this. This is something we should all be ashamed of. I was the only person attending the Congress who went to talk to those young people. Why? Why? What are we scared of? What are they going to do? They're going to eat me? They're going to shout at me? We had a meaningful conversation. I don't agree with them on many things. I don't think it's a valid protest movement to say abolish capitalism. What are you going to do when you abolish capitalism? You're going to close the banks? That doesn't work either. But I was concerned to talk to them. I'm interested to see what they've got to say. I'm interested to see what happens to their movement. So with all of this frustration, David and I believed that as advertising and marketing people, the one thing that we could do, bringing our limited skills to these issues, was if we created a global platform for young leaders to bring together and to try to help and to look after young leaders so that they grow into big leaders who are good leaders, was to create One Young World. One Young World at its simplest is linked, of course, by social media. Everything is these days. And once a year, we have a global summit where we try to bring together people who people like yourselves believe are the next generation of young leaders. Now, some people my age say to me, you can't see when a young person is 25 years old, 23 years old, 28 years old, if they are going to lead a country or make a wonderful new company. I say sometimes you can. Sometimes they're already there. Sometimes is a Mark Zuckerberg. Sometimes is a Bob Geldof. These people start very, very young, changing things. So if we tried to bring them together and tried to create a forum that became over time famous, it would force incumbent leaders, old people, to listen to what young people want and let those young people guide us. So if we can't be good enough leaders today, we can at least follow young people. And I think that's a good idea. An ordinary citizen like me, I don't In those days, I didn't know Desmond Tutu. I didn't know Bob Geldof. I didn't know Muhammad Yunus. I didn't know your own Crown Prince, Prince Haakon. I didn't know any of those people. And you know what? I didn't know anyone who knew them either. So we had a big work to do to try to bring together leaders of great stature with a great ability to inspire our young people that we were bringing together to try and see, could we get the media to pay attention because these big figures were there, but create a forum where the talking really gets done by the young people. And you know what was interesting? When we finally got through the cordon sanitaire that surrounds these great leaders to people like Kofi or Desmond Tutu, Prince Haakon himself, and when we said to them, don't you think that you should lend your time to let young people rise up? There wasn't a single person amongst them who said this is a bad idea. Moreover, we don't pay them to be there. You know, most things, if you pay a lot of money, you can get pretty much anybody to come and talk to you. We didn't pay any of them. We said, you just have to come and give your time. Every single one of them came to give their time. And I promise you this, when you look out at One Young World and you see a Kofi Annan standing in a group of 1,000 youngsters, and the person talking is not Kofi, it's some young person from East Timor standing next to Kofi making the point. You look at a young person, as you watch them, they grow. They get taller. Because they're saying, he's listening to me, what I say, it must be important. So we've had 2 summits. We had one in London. We had the second one last year in Zurich. In Zurich, we're just under 1,300 young people from 171 countries. We gather the biggest number of countries at any youth gathering outside of the Olympic Games itself. This year, we are going to Pittsburgh in the United States just 3 weeks before the elections in the United States. We gather again together many global leaders to speak to these young people. This year, returning Bob Geldof, Muhammad Yunus, Mikhail Gorbachev, Rahul Gandhi, Imran Khan from Pakistan, Jamie Oliver, Ariana Huffington, and that's just the start. It's work that I'm doing at the moment. And we hope to be 1,500 and to have 196 countries represented. And there is a really magic thing that happens when you have all of the countries of the world and these amazing older leaders with all of these young people. And I still, as I go around the world today, I have young people coming up to me and saying to me, I don't know what happened when I went to One Young World, but now I'm doing this and now I'm doing the other thing. Equally, Paul Pullman at Unilever, Anthony Jenkins at Barclays, Jean-Paul Agon at L'Oréal, all of these CEOs of these great global companies who come to me and David and say, best thing we ever did. They as businesses are using their delegations of young leaders to One Young World to change, to transform their companies from the inside, the way Paul describes it. He says, when I've got to take all of my managers and middle managers with me on my sustainable living plan, my work is hard. When the young people come in and they say, we do it like this because Paul says so, life gets really easy. And it's true, because young people are such agents of change. We have a huge delegation coming in from Siemens, from HP, KPMG, PwC. I know one of you are here today. PwC has its own PwC One Young World network. McKinsey are there. Google, I know there was a Google speaker this morning. So literally, Syngenta also I saw there. Literally, most companies you can think of in the world are sending their young leaders to One Young World. They also support their NGOs, so when the NGOs choose someone, they also get sent to One Young World. And we have some fantastic cases. We have a young man in the United States who is running for Congress this year. He's 26. We have a young boy in Uganda, a former child soldier who is running to be an MP in this year's elections in Uganda. On the 21st of February this year, in 85 countries, One Young World ambassadors launched their first wake-up call. In each country, they chose their own wake-up call. They issued a call to government and people that they wanted to change. And this has led to, in Kathmandu, the government has promised to provide wheelchair access to all government buildings. It's hard to imagine in a wonderful country like Norway, a government building where there is no disabled access. Until now, no disabled access in Kathmandu, a promise from the government, and they've started building the ramps. In Mexico and France, our young ambassadors have demanded that the presidential candidates in this year's presidential elections in those countries spend a day live streamed talking to young people, listening to young people's demands. So a wonderful movement for change all over the world. So I leave you with just a 3-minute film just to taste and to lift up your hearts and get a feeling of what things are like at One Young World, where really there is social innovation for change. Run the film.
Before you start the film, I just want to thank everybody of you for being here, and I excuse for our expanding of the time. Lunch is soon served, and next year we'll talk about the coming generation. And also I want to thank all the people who have been working volunteered for us for weeks and weeks to make this happen. Thank you very much, Kate.
Thank you.
To be here with you. I love being here because I'm dying to see what you guys do.
I had to be here. I had to be here. The fantasy and the ideas and the passion of young people and what young people can do.
All around the world today, we are seeing the world's leaders failing to actually lead.
You have to get us out of this mess because we have failed.
This amazing group of councillors believe that you can change the world for the better. Please do it.
You're the pilots now, guys.
It's in your head.
Our generation must recognize its power as consumers and its responsibility as citizens of this planet to support businesses demonstrating concrete emissions targets, but also publicly hold accountable those that do not.
We need to demand an end to fossil fuel subsidies.
Global businesses must take responsibility to human dignity.
We should not underestimate the power of social media to promote democracy.
There is no magic in the tools. The magic is actually in the application.
The world has started to listen and the world has started to care.
That's the younger generation. This enormous collective power that you have.
You are a generation that knows more about social and digital media and how you actually use that to drive and affect positive change.
Fear, anger, disbelief. These were some of the feelings I, a Norwegian Muslim, felt when I first heard about the terror attack in Norway, the 22nd of July.
We cannot undo what is done, but we can choose to stand by our values.
Those who strip humanity from religion are your enemy, not the religion itself.
This summit is the start of our campaign to make business, government and leadership work for us in the digital age.
Inspired by you, we're creating the One Young World Social Business Fund.
Wow! I would like to thank David and Kate for making this all happen.
Our politics does not understand that any one of you can form a political lobby for change now.
Let us, as One Young World, send one message. World, this is a wake-up call.